And ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the prosecution is not going to get that man today. No, because I'm going to get him.
This is the Hagmann and Hagmann Report for today. It's Friday. It's March 8th, 2013. I'm Doug Hagmann. Co-host with me is my son, Joe Hagmann, in studio. Folks are about to hear 3 hours of unbiased and uncensored news, analysis, information that we all need to know and get through in these perilous times. We broadcast live each and every weeknight from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern. You can find us at our home base. That's HomelandSecurityUS.com. HomelandSecurityUS.com. And our sister station up north is CanadaFreePress.com, CanadaFreePress.com. You can watch us as well. We simulcast in high-def video on the Christians United Broadcasting Network. I want to thank them for everything that they do. And, of course, I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us. Thank you for your belief and trust in us. We've got some exceptional letters in our box. We've got a lot of letters about the show. And just want to thank you for everyone who's made a comment about the show. Joe, welcome to the studio. Or welcome to the program.
Glad to be here. Glad to be in studio tonight. It's been a crazy week on my end. Personal issues, taking care of the old lady. But it's good to be in studio. It's good to be here. What do they call it? In the danger zone, in the arena. We'll just say. In the
eye of the tiger. Eye of the tiger. We got to have the eye of the tiger. I'm convinced. The more I see things take shape, I'm convinced that we've got to know what we're up against. We've got to prepare for battle, gird our loins. I guess I don't know. What do you think? I mean, it's.
Well, I think we know what we're up against, and I think we need to protect ourselves, as you said, and we need to do so in a different way than most. The way we talk about it is the way most shows should talk about it, and only very few do. Pastor Paul Begley, Rick Wilds, RPM, the Christian shows, the real Christian shows. And that battle is a spiritual battle,
right,
in the end, and that's where we need to focus our energy, because if we don't have that foundation, as we say so many times, everything else is worthless. So,
yeah, that's true, and it's I've been getting a lot of emails too about, especially in response to the last article I wrote, a lot of people saying, well, what do I do? I've got, in fact, one lady had written me asking, well, what does my father do who lost a lot in the stock market? I'm trying to grab this email here, and I'm not seeing it right off the bat. Oh, yeah, here it is. Here's a person that wrote me, and I think this is kind of part of the problem. I think this is something that we have to consider. We've got to deal with. We've got to address, and I'm considering writing an article about it, but I'm just going to mention her first name, Donna. She said that she's been keeping up with my articles and our research and about the coming collapse of the U.S. dollar, basically, and kind of what's going to happen. And she writes that my dad has a lot of stocks, and she's been keeping him informed of what we've been writing about, we've been talking about. And she says he lost half the value of his stocks when the market crashed previously. Now, can you imagine that? Just in the course of a very short period of time, let's say you had $500,000, and I do know people. Well, I know one person actually, acquainted with one person that has $500,000 in a 401k. But can you imagine waking up the next day or the 2 weeks later or a week later, whenever it is, and finding out that you only have half of that, and you worked your whole life, and this person worked their whole life to build that up into a retirement plan. Anyway, this email goes on. She said he lost half the value of his stocks when the market crashed previously. It was a significant amount. I don't know how much that is. I don't want that to happen to him again, so I've been talking with him about about all of this, and finally able to talk to him into selling his stock so he doesn't have to lose again when this all comes to a head. And then she writes, now that he's selling the stocks, our question is, what do you do with the money? What do you do with what you pull out for safekeeping? And she asks the question, when the dollar collapses, will all banks be able to give you, or will all banks be unable to give you your money? Are all banks affiliated with central banking? Now this shows a little bit of, I don't want to say being naive, but yeah, I mean, really the only good bank, I mean, really a bank is a bank. There are some banks better than others, but if you have your money in the bank, are small neighborhood banks a safe place to have accounts? Would it be better to get a safe and stash in the basement for safekeeping? I mean, this is what I would do. Now she's asking this question, and I wrote her back, but I'm kind of interested, Joe. What would you say to this woman, and I'm interested too what the listeners are doing. Not, I mean, you don't have to get personal, but what are you folks doing in preparation for what's coming? So what would you do?
Well, first of all, it depends on the money aspect. I mean, people right now a lot of people don't have money to prepare financially or to stock food or water, things like that. But there are things you can do on a very low budget.
Oh wait, no. This woman here says her father is got quite a bit of money. So
this specific situation, he's losing money in the stock market.
Well, she isn't one to lose money in the stock market,
right? But he doesn't want to, or isn't moving towards getting out of there.
No, he is.
Okay. Yes. So what I would do.
What do you do with the money? What do you do with the money when you take it out of the stock market?
Well, and this is a good question because people have discretionary income, cash, and savings, and we've been hearing that the deposits are not, and the cash in the bank is no longer secure. It can disappear.
That's right.
We know that having it in the stock market is not a good choice right now, obviously. We read, there was an article the other day, 401ks are being rated at an astronomical rate. People are paying fines and penalties on that just to be able to have that money in their possession instead of pretty much being paper money. But if it was me...
That's what Steve Quayle said, though. Half the pie is better than... no pie, or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
If it was me...
Yeah.
And I don't know how much money they're talking about. We'll just say $50,000. We'll just throw that figure out there. And you're taking that out, and you're going to have that as on hand as cash. I would definitely invest in precious metals. I would invest in some sort of long-term food and supplies. And maybe, I'm not sure how people feel about this, but rental properties, buying properties to rent out as an income for others, and that's a tangible asset aside from the property tax issue of it. You own the house.
I've never really thought about it. I've never thought about that. That brings up a good point, though.
A lot of people make money off doing that. Now, it'd be something that if you were, what is it, Foot This House or Foot My House, the show that was on TV.
It's something.
You got to be market savvy when it comes to realty. In the real estate business. So that's an option. But you can do things like take the money and, depending on what kind of property or land you have, invest in the tools to grow a garden or invest in the tools to become more self-sustainable, where you could have maybe a few animals and a nice place that you could grow all your fresh vegetables and fruit. There's a lot of different ways you can, and it's an individual. It's an individual decision, really, because each person's situation is different than the next, and
that's very true. Well,
but anything that is an asset that you can really hold in your hands or own, and that won't depreciate, is
all right.
Not a bad investment.
Here's what I wrote back to her. I'm just going to give you the salient points. I wrote her back, and then I said, I'm going to do an article about this because I've gotten this question so many times. I cannot possibly. I mean, I've got 30,000 emails in my inbox, and that's after cleaning it out. But here's what I said.
They send a check to P.O. Box.
Yeah. How much was that again?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Get a little punch drunk tonight, I think. But no, I said this. I said, man, that's really a hard question for anyone to answer, because I've gotten this question so many times. I'm going to write an article about this, but personally, I don't give it, financial advice, obviously, and I have all the disclaimers in there. So, no one's going to say that I'm trying to tell people what to do. But here's what I would do, and tell me if you agree with this, because I don't. Sometimes you get so close to things, you just lose sight of everything. But the first thing I would do is I would make sure that I had at least 6 months of food in my pantry and water, and
right.
Only because the food that you eat too. I'm not talking about necessarily spending a ton of money on freeze-dried food or long-term storage food. I'm talking about stuff that you eat every day, and we can easily do that, right? I mean,
right. But there's two. Yeah, and people have two ways of thinking about this. Some people say that you can have that food preparation for yourself and your family, and even if you never use it, or the economy doesn't collapse per se, that's just extra grocery shopping you won't have to do, money you won't have to spend later that you'll have later.
Well, I bought
can eat that food.
Or a jar of peanut butter. I don't know. It was probably 6 months ago. I went back and saw it again a couple of weeks ago. Whenever we talked about it, it was like double in price. So yeah. I figure, I figure, and my daughter loves peanut butter. She's staying with us, so hey, why not?
Yeah, and there's two main trains of thought on this. One is when things go bad and south, that the Lord will provide, and some people feel that they don't need to get prepared, and that's okay if that's what they're led to do. Others who can't afford it, I can understand.
Oh yeah, that's
and then
issue.
There's the other way that people say yes, prepare, because even if you don't get to use it, maybe there'll be another survivor or somebody comes along and finds what you stored up, and it will be useful to somebody else. Yeah,
and look, I am very much in agreement with this, because, like I said, even if you don't think anything is going to happen, or even if you think that whatever is going to happen is a long way off, or whatever you believe, if you have the money and you're asking, if you're looking, if you're in that mindset anyway, why not get stock up? Because you're going to save money just on having it on hand, and just watch the expiration dates and rotate your stock. It's a pain in the butt, but and I guess I don't have to worry about that, but I don't run a grocery store, okay? But here, let me continue, because I think this is kind of, and you guys can evaluate, the listeners can evaluate this advice, because I don't know, and maybe even provide more or even a different perspective, because I'm looking at all angles here. So food, enough for 3 to 6 months. That was my recommendation, and that's very conservative. Enough prescription medicine
per person.
Per person, right. Yeah, I probably should have put that in there, but I guess that was kind of implied. Prescription medication, get like an advance of prescription meds, or and doctors will do this, depending on most doctors will do this. Thanks for, hang on, we're going to get to that in a second.
Sorry for distracting. Yeah,
that's all right. See, that's why I don't look at chat, because I just can't. I just got to focus. Enough prescription medicine for 6 months out, and your doctor will do that for you. And I would even suggest too, if you go to if you are friends with your doctor, and I'm friends with mine, and he knows what's going on. In fact, we sat last time we were together, and of course after he got done, yelling at me for my poor dietary habits and my lack of exercise, he said,
"Good for him."
Yeah, I know. But we talked, and he said, yeah, things are really bad. And he kind of gave me his idea on this Obamacare and such. But he said, look, I will write you a prescription for, I can't remember the name. It's like a Z-Pack of antibiotics. And he said, just get it, so you'll have antibiotics on hand, but don't get it filled right away. Like, wait for 60 days, or there's a time limit on the prescription.
Yeah.
Wait for it. So anyway, get some antibiotics too. And then I said too. This might sound strange to people. I would also store some liquor.
Yeah, you said that the other day for barter. Yeah, we were looking at you got some new cheap shelves at a store.
Yeah.
They hold up to 800 pounds in weight, and they're nice, and for the price, they're very nice. And he was moving some food and supplies he had stored up over the last couple of months, and he moved them onto the new shelves. And he's like, "Well, now it looks like I don't have anything." But
yeah. $59. I got to tell you, if you want to buy shelving, I don't know if you've got. I'm sure you've got Lowe's next or by you. There's shelving. I think it's $59. It was on sale here locally for $49. They're 4 foot long, and they hold 800 pounds. This is just practical advice. If you have the room, for but they're industrial type shelves. They're actually outside of. Well, anyway, they're not something that you'd want necessarily in your living room, obviously, but if you have a basement or something out of the way. But they're good because they hold 800 pounds. They don't have they're good shelves. But $49 on sale at Lowe's, $59 normally, I believe. All right, but liquor, because in times, and I wrote to Donna. I said, if you don't drink, and if you don't start drinking during this time of crisis, which, hey, who knows? It can be used for trade and barter with those that do, because there will be people that will be looking for liquor, and so
cigarettes, liquor,
yeah,
coffee.
Plus, coffee too, and it has some medicinal effects as well, in a pinch. So how am I doing so far in my advice? All right, so food, liquor, prescription medication. And now this is somebody who's got money they're taking out of the stock market, durable goods.
Right, and I'll go back to what I said, looking for ways to spend that money on things that will make you become more self-sufficient, so you wouldn't have to go shopping at the grocery store for your needs.
And I got to tell you something, Joe. This is something you and I spoke about. I've never seen. Remember when you started telling me about Sandy, I kind of blew that off. I thought, come on. But when I went up, even up
right.
on the Great Lakes area. Honest to goodness, you could not. We're 600 miles. We're 600 miles from where the storm hit. You could not buy a generator in this town. You could. Well, you could, if you wanted to spend $4,000, or
right.
If you wanted something to plug in your cigarette lighter, that you call that a generator. But they were all gone, and the water was gone. All of this, 600 miles away from where the storm hit. It was unbelievable. So. But anyway, and by the way, I went to 2 ATMs, and I didn't mention this, but I happened to think about this. I went to 2 ATMs to try to get some money out when I went to the local convenience store, because I had to fill up my gas tank, or was going to try to put some gas in my car. Their ATM system was down, so I couldn't get any gas out of the tanks. I thought, wow, it's something that things you don't think about. So I said I said this too. I would also have a bunch of money, paper money and coins in my safe, at least a month's worth of bills and coin in various denominations, because you wouldn't be expecting ATMs to work and your money to be accessible.
No, that's another point you made is regardless if you keep the money in silver or whatever, I would definitely have cash on hand more than in the bank.
Absolutely. And I think, and the last thing I said to her was, whatever you can't see, hold, or defend, you don't own it and won't possess it for long. Meaning that when you have all of this, certainly you also, in my view anyway, I think I would buy the necessary items to protect it, whether it be firearms or a safe for the money or whatever. I would have that on hand too. And then the precious metals, I don't think you can go wrong with that. I think silver and gold, because even if, just like the food, if nothing happens, you're going to eat it. The regular food, grocery store food, and even the freeze-dried. I opened a can of peas and chicken, and it was good. I mean,
silver's back to $29 an ounce right now.
Okay,
but yeah, the metals have been fluctuating, but that's not. Some people run when they see like we saw last week and the week before, the quick drop.
Yeah,
$4 drop in silver. You had like $100 drop in gold. But no, that's a good time to buy for.
I think so. If you had money to buy it, yeah.
Right, because on this financial advice topic we're on, the metals cannot stay down forever, especially not the way we see the prices going up now faster than ever at the grocery stores. Gas continues to go up even though the price of oil is going down. The Fed continues to print money. We are in like weeks or month 6 of QE infinity, I think.
Yep.
And it's going to continue. Now we have a record almost 90 million Americans not in labor force. 296,000 fewer employed since January.
Think about that. 90 million Americans.
That's almost a hundredth of the country. What she said, 350 million. So it'd be like almost 1 out of 150 people in the country have lost or fewer unemployed since January now.
Man. So yeah, we're definitely in trouble. But there was another part of this too, and I just wanted to address this real quick. Another part of this. Well, what's going to happen if the money is going to be devalued? Why have it? Why would you have any of it in a safe? Why would you have like a month's worth of cash, U.S. dollars? And the question came. There's another question with this. Like, wouldn't you buy? Or wouldn't you like convert it to yen or some other foreign currency? Well,
that's not a bad idea either. This is something that,
but no, it's going to be global though. See that.
Well, this is something we can talk about and have maybe somebody on to talk about, because holding foreign currencies, like some currencies, are not going. I mean, I know when there's an actual world economic collapse, it'll envelop pretty much everything. But currencies like what does Sweden use for currency?
I don't know, sheep?
No, they have a strong currency.
I don't know.
Even Canada, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you could take $200 to Canada and get like 450 Canadian. Now it's about even. If you would have used or invested in Canadian currency 10 years ago, you would have pretty much doubled your money up to this point. So it's a lot of research on people's own parts they're going to have to do when figuring out what remedy they want to use to secure that level of wealth.
Yeah, and I think it is a personal type of decision. In that when you get to that level, it's a personal type of decision. But I do think this, and this is kind of part of it, that I think from what I've been told, that when this does happen, there's going to be a period of time that's going to be, for example, your money, the American dollar, the U.S. dollar, is still going to be worth something. It's just not going to have the buying powers it has now, or it had 5 years ago, obviously. So during this crash/chaos conversion, until this global currency gets into effect. By the way, I'm sorry, I won't deviate from this. During this time, there's going to be a period of time when the U.S. dollar will still be a tradable commodity, will be something you could use. So don't think like on Monday you wake up and it's going to be like an automatic thing. This is my view. Now, this is what I've been told by others, that there will be like a bounce period, or not a bounce, but kind of like a static period for the dollar. And because this is my greatest question. What's this going to look like? And I've talked to Ann Barnhart, I've talked to Steve Quinn, I've talked to everybody I can think of, the others as well.
What's it going to look like?
What's it going to look? I mean,
it's going to look like Katrina without water.
But I mean, but see, even during Katrina, if you had cash in your hand, I mean, American dollars in your hand, you were still able to do stuff, buy stuff. Well, you could buy a car.
It depends. And see, you might know more about what was going on at a local level in certain instances, but from what I understand, everything was shut down. Even nursing homes, the staff abandoned the patients that were there. Police quit.
Oh, true.
There was, if you could find a store that was open,
police were. It was incredible. But so think of Katrina, and this is how it was described to me too. Think of Katrina geographically, but so we've got this period of time where we will be able to use the dollar until this other system takes its place, and so that was my biggest concern. And but did you upload that clip from Chris Matthews about him talking early? I
uploaded the clip. Well, let's start with this. This is a 1 minute clip, then we'll go to the long one.
Okay.
This is setting it up. Why do Republicans and the Tea Party hate Obama so much?
This is a good one.
1 minute, 6 seconds clip.
And natural segue.
It's going to lead in to right-wing extremist group on the rise, and an extreme rise. But
this is so important.
Here is Chris Matthews on the intro.
Let me finish tonight with this. I think about these hate groups. What did Obama do to earn the hatred? Is he some dangerous criminal, the kind they say they need to protect themselves and their families from? Not exactly. Obama came up as a community organizer, a soft cell guy, a stabilizer of the community. In fact, he's done just about everything right in his life. Didn't have a father around, but did a great job in school himself, got into Columbia and later Harvard Law, didn't become a money grubber anyway. He just decided to work helping people in his own community, a peaceful kind of guy. Is he some bounder who doesn't take responsibility for his manhood? Actually, just the opposite. One marriage, faithful husband, good kids. From all appearances, a really caring father. Goes to games for the kids. So what is it that the haters fear about this guy? What do they hate? That he's black? Is that it? Is it the gun issue? He didn't even push gun issues until Newtown. Is it the immigration issue? He's got a bill that's practically the same as the Gang of Eight, right there in the middle. So what is it they hate in this guy? They should be applauding him as a role model, because if this country's going to be a united country 100 years from now, white, black, and brown, this is just the guy you'd want out there standing there as our role model.
Of course, we would definitely want this guy, President Obama, as our role model, the perfect president. And this from Chris Matthews. Saying why does the Tea Party and Republicans, turning it into a left-right issue, hate Obama so much?
See, and where well, go ahead.
I don't think it's obviously we know this, and it's a shame we have to continue to say this. You know, people might hate Obama, but that's not the underlying issue of where the anger is coming from. People hate what he's doing.
Yeah, I don't think I don't know. I don't think hate Obama is not the issue. It's what he's doing.
There are people that hate Obama just because he's black, maybe because he's president. I don't know, because he's a Democrat. There's a laundry list of reasons. But most people seem to hate his policies, hate his destruction of this country.
But see, isn't what he just said, isn't this kind of what the majority, I'm going to say the majority, meaning over 50%, not necessarily the vast majority, but the majority, 52%, 53%. Isn't this how they think? I mean,
and it's sad because it's misdirected anger. These people are lacking the understanding. They're not searching for the truth, for the people behind the curtain, like the Wizard of Oz. Make that reference. Obama is just the face. He is just the talking head that carries out or announces to the world the actions that are being taken by the administrative branch, which is run by the international globalists and political think tanks who are part of the Trilateral Commission, CFR, Bilderberg Group, all these organizations we hear about, but the New World Order. But they think about people who talk about the New World Order. This is Chris Matthews.
This is good. This
expanding on what he just said about why people hate Obama.
This circles back to what we were talking about at the beginning. Go ahead.
Welcome back to Harvard. The crazies are still on the rise. A study by the Southern Poverty Law Center finds that the number of anti-government patriot groups has exploded over the last 4 years. According to the study, these groups typically believe that the federal government is conspiring to take Americans' guns away from them and destroy their liberties as it paves the way for a global one-world government. Well, these are groups like the Constitution Party, We Are Change, Tyranny Response Team, and Americans for a Free Republic. And these anti-government patriot groups have skyrocketed in number during President Obama's time in office. There were only 149 groups back in 2008. In 2012, there are more than 1,300, and that's an increase of over 800%. Look at the chart there. Yesterday, the Southern Poverty Law Center sent a letter to Homeland Security Secretary Janet Napolitano and Attorney General Eric Holder warning that the gun control debate may lead to even more such groups being founded. Mark Podak is a respected guy for us. He's with the Southern Poverty Law Center, and Brian Levin is with the Center for the Study of Hate and Extremism at California State University, San Bernardino. Gentlemen, I want you to start tonight. It's your report, Mark, so lead the way here. Let me ask you this. I'm going to get into this in my close tonight on the show, which I feel a lot. I look at Obama as a perfect American. I don't mean politically. We can disagree left and right on him. You can argue about the drones, argue about the fiscal policy, all that stuff. But as a citizen, the guy went to school. He never broke a law. He did everything right. He raised a wonderful family. He's a good husband, a good father. My God, I don't think he's ever got a speeding ticket. The guy does everything right. And these right-wing, and he's really been pretty moderate on guns until the horror of Newtown. And I don't know what they're so afraid of him for, except he happens to be black. Is there some reason why he has sparked this explosion in right-wing organizing?
Well, I think, like you say, Chris, I mean, it has to do with his color. You know, what I would say is that with a lot of these groups, it's not visceral clan-like racism. It's not, you know, we want to send black people back to Africa or something along those lines. It's more like I look at the White House, I see a black man there, I feel the culture's changing all around me. By the way, the economy's terrible, I can't get a job, or I'm afraid I'm going to lose the one I do have. And it kind of all melds together in a feeling of, you know, I've lost my country. Somehow this is not the country that my forefathers created. So I think there's a real heavy dose of racism in there, but it's only a piece of the mix. Let me argue that. There's so much of America that remains traditional. Small-town American life is very much small-town American life. Our religions are still our religions. I mean, movies can be racy, but you don't have to go to movies. You can ignore their existence. Television's pretty tame. What is it that really rocks them? What it really makes them, my God, it's not like my life anymore. What is it? I'm still looking for it. I understand when communities change ethnically. That's always been a concern of people who've lived there a long time. When something new, it's hard to accept sometimes. But these people live out in the Rocky Mountain areas. They live up in the Northwest. There's not much ethnic change going on in their lives, is it? Is there? Well, there's ethnic change going on in more places than you'd think, first of all. I live in Alabama, which used to be a state essentially of white people and black people, and there's now a very substantial Hispanic, Latino population. So there's that, but there's also discomfort with cultural changes like, for instance, same-sex marriage. Obviously, increasing majorities of Americans are in favor or don't oppose same-sex marriage. But for a lot of people, something like that is a very tough pill to swallow. It makes them feel that they live in a kind of a brave new world. Yeah. So certainly it's true. I mean, you don't have to watch racy TV. You don't have to sort of see Madonna on MTV or whatever it is. And yet I think there's a feeling that things are changing and changing very quickly. Well, luckily for us, our marriage has really involved a relationship between two people, me and somebody else, my wife, my queen, you know, and it has very little to do with anybody else, luckily. Let me go to you, Brian. I mean, the way I'm chalking this up, this right-wing hysteria, if you will, maybe it's logical in their point of view, the way they're thinking about demographic change, but guns, immigration, and gays, is that your reading that those are the stimuli to these people when they decide to organize these hate groups?
I think it's a lot of it, but I think we have to put it in a context. The folklore of the far right, and I'm not talking about Mitt Romney supporters. I'm talking about people who have opted out of our political process, and that's what's problematic. These people see the terra firma under them as shifting, something that anchored them before they no longer see as anchoring them. Who do they root for? Who do they root for? They don't root for anybody now. They don't root for Rand Paul, Pat Buchanan. I mean, who? They must like this new guy, Ted Cruz. They must love Ted Cruz. Come on. Look, I think you hit a nerve, and what that is there is now a part of mainstream politics which aligns with these kind of conspiracy theories, and they're getting away from what are traditional conservative Republican anchors. That is small government, personal responsibility, the idea that we are part of a political process, and if we didn't win this time, we'll try again. Now we're hearing secession. I like the way you talk. We're hearing... Yes, that makes sense, but what happened to the guys, the crazy, I call them crazy because they have so much evidence to the contrary. Why is Louis Gohmert of Texas over and over again talking about birtherism? Why is Donald Trump, with the sophistication of New York City around him, I'm going to get back to you on this, Mark, why does he keep pandering to these haters? Every time a guy with the money and the background and all the advantages of life, the beautiful wife, the children, he has everything going for him. And they can always point to a guy like that and say, he's not facing financial problems. He's not facing marital problems. He's got it made, and he believes all the nutty stuff I believe. He panders to them. What is that? How does that fit into this stuff? Well, I mean, who in the world is to say what Donald Trump really believes? I mean, I think that the reason people act the way they do in large part is because there's a base out there. I also think that there's a kind of reverse part of this equation, which is that characters like Donald Trump, like a Lou Dobbs, formerly on TV, there are a number of people out there who are essentially acting as transmitters, who are bringing ideas
from the very, very far fringes of the society into the mainstream. So we've got birtherism, we've got truthers, we've got all kinds of conspiracies.
I agree. I'm hearing the same music from the more sophisticated and the least sophisticated, but it's the same music. The government's no good. It's out to get you. It's out to grab your guns. The country's turning brown and black, and you got nothing to do, and you're becoming irrelevant and gay, and you've got nothing to do with it. It is, it's not all the messages of Trump. He just sells the fact that our president is from another country and basically has snuck into this country, somehow pretended to be who he is, and it's all a fraud. Right? I think that's pretty dangerous talk too.
I think that's right. I think it's worth adding how
one of the things that I think that we're seeing here on both sides of the political spectrum, and I think it's important to recognize that. Now, we certainly have a risk of violence and terrorism more so from the extreme right wing.
Who on the left is talking nutty right now? Give me some examples of
Charles
nutty talk.
Charles Barron is talking nutty from the left. The truthers are talking nutty from the left. So we have Alex+Jones on the right. We have Charles Barron on the left. We have the people with Anonymous, with all kinds of conspiracy theories. One thing that I think is important, and that is conspiracy theories and a decoupling from the institutions and processes of our pluralistic democracy are occurring on both sides of the political spectrum. So we're hearing almost an equal number of people who say Bush was the Antichrist, as is Obama.
Okay, I don't think it's symmetric. I don't buy that it's symmetric because there are a lot more birthers than there are truthers.
Public policy polling.
That's right. The idea that there's an equivalency of the far left and the far right, I think, is just ridiculous. I agree with Brian that there are conspiracy theories on both sides.
With respect to the threat, the Internet and the way we are having dialogue, we have conspiracists on the left.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to cut it. Wow.
Yeah, obviously it is the people in the independent media bringing these fringe ideas out in the open. And since Obama is a perfect American who's never broken a law in his life,
so his admissions then,
because he's black is why we don't like the way the direction the country's headed.
It always comes down to the race card, and folks, I mean, doing the research on this, I just want to say this real quick, doing the research on this, to be fair, all right, to be technically accurate, if you were going to go into a court of law and testify to, we'll say, Obama's ethnicity, based on your research, he is 50% Caucasian on his mother's side. He is 43.75% Arab. That's Arab on his father's side. And 6.25% black. So what is that? What is he? Is he an African American?
No,
he's an Arab American.
We're racist against the white side of Obama,
but
I guess.
You know what though?
I mean, it's so convoluted.
Yeah, and it's not even worth talking. I mean, his race doesn't have anything to do with it. But I think that clip is so valuable because. Isn't this kind of Matthew said something too, and not that we have this focus on Matthews, but he said something too that I believe a lot of people believe in, that if you believe in any way that an economic collapse is possible,
or the government,
that you're a kook, you're absolutely, you need psychiatric help.
Yeah,
that's what. So
and we saw the language here: extreme right wing, and he said, "Who's talking radical from the left wing?" And he named somebody. What about what he just was saying was radical? Yeah.
See,
and you said, that's a huge point. The truthers, people telling the truth, is now a fringe conspiracy theorist, demonized, and it's been this way. But for him to just come out and basically saying. People who tell the truth.
Well, people seeking the truth. Well, I think we have to make that distinction because I certainly don't agree with the truth movement. Everything the truth movement says, I don't.
No, I mean there's things and positions they take on. I mean, nobody has to agree on everything.
No,
but the basic concept of getting the truth to the American people is the underlining issue, and that is what is being hindered by the controlled dinosaur media. So of course it's fringe when you have people like our show and Pastor Begley and Alex+Jones, all these people who do independent media, bringing issues that aren't talked about or even hinted at in your local news or your national news, and there's attention. Obviously, this is a market where telling the truth is popular. And you look at Ben Swann, how many local TV stations are there in this country? It's not thousands. How many local TV anchors do their own little segment pieces on those local stations? Probably tens of thousands.
Yeah.
The one who's getting the most attention, Ben Swan.
Now, why is that?
Because he's telling the truth.
Or at least seeking the truth.
Exactly.
Because people have, and this is, I love the people, I love the listeners to our show, and I love the people who email me, and you, and I see your emails and you see mine, and it's great because these people want the truth. They don't want anything else, and they don't want bias.
Right. Sick of it. The division through whatever means necessary, racial.
Oh man, yeah.
Political, ideological.
Can't we just be Americans? Under the
because America is gone, and I got a clip of
Christian Americans. How's that?
Levin, we'll play this later. The America, this is America, and we shouldn't tolerate it anymore.
Well,
also, to the marginalization point you're speaking of how they marginalize different races, different classes of people through political, economic divides. We had this clip we listened to, you and me, earlier from a caller calling into the Ed Schultz show about the Jones book. It's only a 2-minute clip, and there's a lot of talking over each other here, but it's interesting here because
and this has a lot to do with what we're talking about, because this is
and you brought out a main point of this that I didn't hear at first, and this is about drones. Now, the argument is the lady calls in and says, you're turning into a neocon. Basically saying, because Mr. Schultz and Lawrence O'Donnell and all these MSNBC contributors were just steamrolling Bush every day, over war crimes and over how terrible and constitutionally shredding policies he was implementing. But listen to this now.
Terry in Los Angeles, you're on the Ed Schultz Radio Show. Hello.
Hey, regarding drones, you suddenly sound like a neoconservative. So I Googled unmanned aerial systems, otherwise known as drones, and the words General Electric, and I see your parent company is knee-deep in profiteering off drone manufacturing.
And you think that drives my opinion?
I don't know. It's just weird.
Oh, give me a break, Terry.
Give me a break.
Listen to what the hell you're saying. You're trying to say
I'm
that
not even sure what the
you think. I am with the president. Excuse me. I am with the president. I'm with the president on this.
You're an idiot. War profiteering. You should be speaking about GE paying some taxes too, instead of gutting Social Security or the sequester.
Psycho
Your
talk.
parent company pays no taxes.
Keep going. Keep going. This is good.
Sick. You're
sick in Terry. Sick in Los Angeles.
Google unmanned aerial systems and GE, and you'll see they are profiteering off drones. And now all of a sudden, literally,
you just found that out. You just found that out?
All of a sudden.
Terry, it is a fact that you have lost your mind. It is a fact that, Terry, that you better watch out. You might be taken out by a drone yourself, Terry. You just never know.
Folks, let me tell you something. If I get to the boardroom of General Electric to that pay grade, I'll do something about it, okay? But for her to call in and say that affects where I stand on issues, that's a stretch. Hysterical. She's just absolutely hysterical.
And that was Ed Schultz. And the reason I think that this is important, there's a couple of reasons why I think this is important. And sorry for talking over that earlier. First of all, isn't it interesting how the conversation just degrades? We have a talk show, obviously, and Ed Schultz is taking calls. There was an issue brought up about the drones, and it was from a factual point of view. Now, maybe she sounded a little bit contentious initially, calling Ed Schultz out, but
and she was calling out MSNBC being owned by GE, which is one of the biggest profiters from making drones.
Well, okay, and it's I guess the reason I was really concerned about this clip, or I wanted this clip to be played for everyone, is because this is how the fight is being played right now. I think if we had to, once again, using a court of law example, if we had to go into court and say, testify to how the facts are being marginalized, or people trying to present the truth are being marginalized, this is exactly how it's happening, folks. You get a guy like Schultz, or even Hannity on the right, just absolutely berating, degrading the people who are trying to bring facts.
And I have some clips I could upload of Ed Schultz. You and me listened to last week.
Yes. Oh,
and
painful.
He's talking about marching. He's like, march these Republicans into the ditch and get rid of them. Talking to callers who call in. One caller was talking about how Mr. Schultz was laughing at the fact that Hummer and another company were sending their manufacturing jobs to China.
Right.
And that we would have to, it's better because we can buy more efficient, gas-efficient cars, because more gas-efficient cars can be made in China rather than the U.S., was his rationale. And a caller called in and said, I'm a Democrat, and I'm sickened by the fact that you're laughing. And then he goes on a rant about how he's done more for the American people and American jobs than anybody. And what do you do, to help American people? Are you out there with me at town hall meetings? And, and then he goes on to call him crazy. And, I mean, just search Ed Schultz meltdown, Ed Schultz psychotic incident. Ed Schultz march Republicans into a ditch. There's so many. And this guy has a 1-hour show on MSNBC every night and has had it for years, and also a 3-hour radio show during the day. And this is the same with Rachel Maddow, Lawrence O'Donnell. These people all have these clips and sound bites. Right. And just like on the right, you can find Bill O'Reilly, you can find all these people who, Glenn Beck included in the olden days when he was on Fox and CNN, who attack the people merely asking a question.
And I was talking to Steve Quayle today, and folks, by the way, I think Steve Quayle will be on Tuesday. That's before you write that in stone. I
write that in stone,
or carve it in stone, or
no, I just
whatever. Yeah,
sounds like we're 400 years ago.
Well, I don't.
I'm sorry, 4,000 years ago.
I had to ask my daughter. I said, "Tell me again what an iPad is," okay? Because I wasn't sure. But anyway, so Tuesday, perhaps Steve Quayle. Not sure exactly, and I'm going to withhold any information about the topic only because it's in development. So, but kind of keep that in the back of your mind. But this, I was talking to Steve about this today, and about how people are just marginalized, or being marginalized just for asking a question and bringing the truth out. And I guess for anything else, if we don't get anything else out of it, just keep an eye out, whether it's on your local, if you have local programming, or if you're listening to national programming. It's almost as if somebody sent this memo out to all the broadcasters, and we didn't get it, of course, but this is how you handle anyone wanting to know the truth, regardless of which side you're on. So that's that's the only thing I wanted to okay. That's the value of this.
All right. Well, then what I'll do is I'll hit news headlines that we're going to be discussing till the break here, and then we can probably take calls throughout the second hour, or at least half of the second hour and third hour.
Yep.
Okay. Brennan was sworn in, took his oath on the draft of the Constitution, which did not include the Bill of Rights. John Brennan, hours after CIA Director John Brennan took the oath of office behind closed doors, far away from the press, perhaps benefiting his stature as America's top spy, the White House took pains to emphasize the symbolism of the ceremony. There's one piece of this that I wanted to note for you, spokesman Josh Earnest told reporters at the Daily Briefing. Director Brennan was sworn in with his hand on the original draft of the Constitution that had George Washington's personal handwriting, and annotations on it dating from 1787.
I didn't even know they were allowed to take that out of the environmentally sound booth case thing they got.
Ernest said Brennan had asked for a document from the National Archives that would demonstrate the U.S. is a nation of laws. Director Brennan told the president that he made the request to the archive because he wanted to reaffirm his commitment to the rule of law as he took the oath of office as director of the CIA. The Constitution itself went into effect in 1789.
Now, wait a second. I'm going to stop you right there. Please note and read and emphasize how this next sentence is characterized.
All right, I'll post a link in the chat.
This is from Yahoo.com.
Yeah.
But this is a news item. But this next sentence that Joe's about to, I'll read it. Okay, do you mind?
No, go for it.
Okay, all right. Listen to this. This is in the news story about the issue about Brennan swearing his oath on the original
draft of the Constitution.
Draft of the Constitution. But this next sentence really is telling. Mm-hmm. It says this. But I'll put the in place here. But the troublemaking blogger Marcy Wheeler points out that what was missing from the Constitution in 1787 is also quite symbolic. The Bill of Rights is missing, which did not officially go into effect until December 1791 after ratification by states.
Yeah, and then with the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, what separates those two is the Bill of Rights lays out the people's individual protection.
Which and this Marcy Wheeler goes on, and as Yahoo.com states, that means no freedom of speech and of the press.
Not even free speech laws?
No right to bear arms, no Fourth Amendment ban on unreasonable search and seizures, and no right to a jury trial. Now, I guess the question is this. Was this an honest mistake? I mean, wow. Was this an honest mistake? I mean, was this guy just trying to do something symbolic, and really was his heart pure in this and saying, look, I'm getting a bad rap here. This whole thing's getting a bad rap. Let's bring out something symbolic to show, to even drive home the point that we are a nation of laws, and I'm not going to, do the nasty on people. Okay? Drone people. Don't drone me, bro. I guess, or is this something more nefarious? We don't have to make a conspiracy out of it. I just want to know, was this something intentional, or just was it a good intent gone awry?
Nothing these people do are unintentional, I would say. The Lincoln Bible, the swearing in of Obama on the Lincoln Bible, he requested that. He did request that in the 2008 inauguration. Or, I'm sorry, the 2009 inauguration.
Well, I got you. Yeah, exactly.
So he asked for this.
It was a Masonic Bible.
The Lincoln Bible?
Yeah, I believe it was the Masonic Bible.
Okay, that's something I'm not 100% sure on. But one thing I do know is, yes, this is probably, just as it reads, just as the troublemaking, conspiracy theory, enemy, belligerent, combatant, blogging Mary Wheeler had pointed out.
Did you added those words, right?
Yes, except troublemaking.
Okay.
That it does not. It says it means no freedom of speech and of the press, no right to bear arms, no Fourth Amendment ban on unreasonable searches and seizures, and no right to a jury trial. Is it symbolic? Absolutely. Because what did the drone program? What does that promote? You don't have the right to do anything but get shot at, and there is no due process. There is no reasonable search or seizure, or there is no reasonable or justifiable reason given to take another person's life. And the big argument we saw yesterday on all the clips we played was the one mention that Rand Paul used to the cafe, sitting in an internet cafe. Now, if you're a known terrorist, and you're in an internet cafe, let's say, doing whatever.
They parse the language so much of that.
Right.
Yes, go ahead.
Do you have the ability, the lawful ability under the Constitution, to drop a drone on the internet cafe, even though there is not an immediate risk to the United States?
But he left that part out, so.
Right. But the question being, can you do that? Well, they say no, it's illegal. You can't do that. Well, this is what they do in every other country. They have bombed funerals. They have bombed weddings. They have bombed houses.
Exactly.
They have bombed people standing on the road. I saw a video where they droned 5 people helping someone fix a car.
Yeah, we had actually. This is a while back now. We had some footage that we would never release, but in fact, I think it was. I'm not sure. I wouldn't say classified, but it's not public. That had this really gruesome, and you might even be able to find it on the internet. But it had a really gruesome attack on. It was a family. It was picture a minivan going down the road, and bam, this hits. A drone strike takes out a family in the minivan, and it just didn't strike me. Well, pardon the pun, there is unintended, but it was just it just struck me the wrong way. But I'm looking at this picture of Brennan and with Biden and whoever else is surrounding him. And I'm trying to really rationalize. Is this something that this guy was just trying to do in good faith and really didn't realize what he was doing, or was this something intentional? And you, Joe, you said it was intentional. And at this point, based on all my research that I've done, I have to say I would not give him the benefit of the doubt, and that's a sad thing.
And another story relating to drones, the Air Force has removed RPA airstrike number from summary. And this is as scrutiny and debate over the use of remotely piloted aircraft, RPA, or drones, by American military increased last month. The Air Force reversed a policy of sharing the number of airstrikes launched from drones in Afghanistan and quietly scrubbed the statistics from previous releases kept on their website. Last October, Air Force Central Command stated tallying weapon releases from drones broken down into monthly updates. At the time, AFCENT spokeswoman Captain Kim Bardner said that the number would be put out every month as part of a service effort to provide a more detailed information on drone ops in Afghanistan.
Okay, so
the Air Force maintained that the policy for the statistic reports for November, December, and January, but the February numbers released March 7th contained empty spaces where the box of the drone strikes had previously been.
Is this a matter of national security? I don't think so. I don't know. I guess one can argue about the national security aspects of this.
And the whole drone argument can be summed up in a few sentences.
Right. Go ahead.
Does any person in Afghanistan or Pakistan now pose a direct threat to the national security of the United States to the point that they warrant to be met with lethal force right now? Is there any Afghanistan civilian that has the capabilities of launching a weapon from Afghanistan?
Wait a minute. Is there
okay, regardless if you're a civilian or you're a known terrorist in Afghanistan.
Right.
Does it even matter? There is no justification to bring lethal force against that civilian or terrorist in Afghanistan, as they are not posing a life-threatening situation to America or its national security.
But doesn't this go back to, are we fighting a war, or is this a military, or is this a police action?
Because this is a global police state action.
What is this?
Not a war.
Because am I going back to the Vietnam era? Where the stuff from the Vietnam era. Holy cow!
Who are we really droning? This from the New American. Rand Paul asks, is Obama administrating hiding arms trades to jihadists? So when we know that that's true, that Obama is engaged and has been engaged not only in arms trades to Al-Qaeda and rebel forces all throughout the Middle East, but also through Fast and Furious and his gun-running scandal here in America.
You mentioned Fast and Furious, and I just want to say Katie Pavlich wrote that great book called Fast and Furious. And if you want to get the background on that, I would definitely recommend Katie Pavlich's book, Fast and Furious, because Fast and Furious does tie in, served as a template for Benghazi. Benghazi was on a larger scale, but I'm glad you brought that up. But all of this is very troubling, because what we're doing is, is we're normalizing actions that America of 50 years ago would not even think of doing, or 100 years ago.
Yeah, so. You're right. And some other news we're going to hit tonight. The TSA allowed at least 11 airport employees with criminal backgrounds to receive security badges. This is no surprise to people who have been following the TSA, as they've hired known pedophiles.
Wait a minute. They're doing what?
They have hired 11 people and given them security clearances that have criminal records that they're not supposed to be hiring.
Yeah.
Also, Chicago, Rahm Emanuel announced that they may expand the gun offender registry and make it like a sex offender registry. We're going to get into that. Obama has released a new executive order, and we're going to try to comprehend what it's saying.
I don't know what the heck this is.
And maybe we can
talk over.
Maybe we can go over it together as an audience and us and try to figure out what that is saying, because it's talking about international troops. It's talking about U.S. security.
I got a couple of emails, too, I think would be important to address.
Also some news that we didn't get to last night on the new meningitis outbreak and another violent or deadly pandemic that is coming. Folks, you're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report this Friday, March 8th, 2013. We'll be right back after these short messages.
Hi, folks. Doug Hagmann here. You might know me as the co-host from the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, or as a frequent guest on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. If you're like me, you're tired and confused over today's headlines. You just don't know where to turn for accurate, concise information about really what's going on, what's truly going on in today's society. If you don't know where to turn for accurate, well-researched, and properly vetted news, I've got a suggestion. In fact, it's a requirement. Bookmark Canada Free Press. That's CanadaFreePress.com on the internet. It's just not for Canada. It's for news across the world. Judy McLeod, founding editor, has put together a vast array of talented writers like Kelly O'Connell, Daniel Greenfield, Dr. Eilena Johnson-Powell, a lot of guest columnists, very talented writers. Folks, that's Canada Free Press at CanadaFreePress.com. Now mobile friendly. Follow on Facebook, because without America, there is no free world.
Survival of the fittest. In any and all situations, survival is your number one priority. That requires being tough and thinking smart. And the folks at Freeze Dry Guy are going to help you do just that. They have the long-range patrol ration entrees, what they call the Brick Pack. When you're in survival mode, it is absolutely the best item for your survival pack or bug-out bag. You can go farther, faster, and carry more food with the LRP cold weather ration entrees. Not only do these long-lasting, durable entrees help sustain you or your family through the harshest environment or situation, they are by far the most delicious of their kind. No contest. With a variety of tasty entrees, you can't beat the LRP Brick Packs. Let Freeze Dry Guy help you in your survival situations. Go to freezedryguy.com. That's freezedryguy.com. Or call 866-404-3663. That's 866-404-FOOD.
You better wake up fast and listen to this, America. The Obama campaign has launched attack squads disguised as truth teams dedicated to intimidating and silencing all political dissent carried over the internet that criticizes the Marxist Obama. Truth squads specifically focused on covering up Obama's endless trail of lies, corruption, and subversion, and using the Gestapo power of our own government to police and censor the internet and shut down websites that dare to carry the real truth about Obama's Marxist coup. Remember the names of these Gestapo-style agencies at work right there in your neighborhood: KeepingHisWord.com, KeepingGOPHonest.com, and AttackWatch.com. KGB, SS, and Gestapo-style police-state gangster organizations at work to silence the important voices of patriot dissent, some of which have already been shut down by Obama's orders. Adolf Hitler would have been proud. We're the 21st century Tea Party patriots.
Hold on to your seats. The Hagmann and Hagmann flight is now taking off. Doug and Joe Hagmann have cleared the runway of TSA agents, jihadists, political crackpots, and global elitists. Now get ready for some real news. Here they are, Doug and Joe Hagmann.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us coast to coast worldwide on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. It is a live broadcast. Today is the 8th day of March 2013. Just a couple of points, Joe, before we move on, and then I got a couple of emails, and we're going to hit some real news here, real hard news. And you mentioned something during the break, which I think everyone needs to really understand as well. But before we get into that, last night we had all of our callers are great, but we had a couple of calls, one from we'll say Western New York, and just want to let people know, because I've had a couple of emails about this. The individual that called about DHS agents, if you will, or people from DHS going into the homes of veterans under a pretext and actually searching their homes for the only thing we can figure is guns, or would be a gun or guns. These are veterans, homes of veterans, and unwarranted searches or searches without warrants, warrantless searches. We're still trying to follow up on that. I just received an email from the caller, and when we do make contact with the people involved, once we verify and authenticate the story, because we've been getting information from others about this taking place, not in similar fashion, but not exact fashion. We will let you know, because people have been emailing and asking for updates on that. Raymond, thank you very much for this. Raymond writes, "Dear Doug and Joe, there's no such thing as left and right anymore. There's only right, or no such thing as left and right. There's only right and wrong. And the line is God versus Satan, or God and Satan." And we agree with that. Ray, look, we understand this. Law by rule, rule by law. Law by rule is under that heading is Satan and everything else. Rule by law is God, republic. Wrong is hate, right is love, and lawyers caused it all to be gray. And we've had a front row center seat for that as investigators. You're so right. The second one is this. I've been talking with, and you probably have heard me speaking about this, and Susan, if you're listening, I just want to say hello. I've had the distinct honor and privilege to talk with a Gold Star mother, the mother of a Marine who was executed, I believe executed, in Afghanistan. And her son was, in my eyes, was a hero, certainly in her eyes, and it's really a sad thing to talk about, because for a lot of reasons.
He was set up.
Yeah, he was set up. He was
set up to die.
Yes, he was.
He knew too much, and commanding officers set him up.
And we're going to have Susan on the program, because she's got so much information. This woman has spent 3 years of her life. Just imagine being a parent and losing your son in Afghanistan under conditions which he could perhaps have been saved. This is related to Dakota Meyer, him getting the Medal of Honor. And to the extent that this is the same, her son was killed, but Dakota Meyer was involved in that whole thing.
Similar situations include Pat Tillman.
Exactly.
For those who don't know, Pat Tillman was an NFL football star who decided to go fight for his country instead of remaining in the NFL, where he was stood to make millions of dollars, and started speaking out against the war, the reasons they were there, and what they were doing there. And he was killed, pretty much from unofficial reports by our own
exactly.
Our own personnel.
Yeah, but the thing with Susan, and I'm not going to give her last name, or I'm not going to give the name of the soldier at this point, because I just don't want to draw any more attention to this, or draw unwarranted attention, because Susan, as can you imagine having your son, like I said, killed? She has been harassed by our government And when I say harassed by our government, imagine this. Imagine being in your house and having, now this is before her son's death, but imagine having a SUV, black SUV, in front of your house or near your house, and somebody taking pictures of your house, your car, and you, and then afterwards having a drone. And I'm saying drone because by all accounts, by description, this is what it is: a drone fly over your home, and this again 2-3 years after his death, and then having helicopters, 2, 3 perhaps, black helicopters. You might think, oh, come on, you're nuts. No, this was verified through an account by a neighbor. Look, I looked into this. I've verified this. This woman is not some, off the wall, off the rocker kind of person. She's very, very, very stable. She's got an impeccable background. Her son had an impeccable background. Her son became a CIA asset, operational asset, and in fact, was delivering cash to the mullahs in Afghanistan. Briefcase is full of cash for reasons that we will get into at a later time. But the whole thing of it is, when he discovered that something was wrong, that the whole system was there was something wrong, she started doing research, and of course he was set up to die, as you said, Joe. He was really set up to die. And there are men in the military right now that, I want to say, caused this death.
I might be going too far in saying this, but didn't they have a system of communication beyond? Didn't they have they could talk to each other in code? The mother and the...
Well, yeah, I would say that you're pretty correct in that, but I would... You know how moms know their sons and stuff. It's a special relationship. Well, it was kind of an extension of that, without getting into too much detail. But by the way, I looked over this young man's computer, which Department of Defense just blasted the hard drive, cleaned it out. You could not see, there was nothing left of it, but his personal notes, books, personal notes. And I got to tell you something. Wow. Well, but here's the thing. Here's the reason I mention this. She wrote to me this evening, Central Command is not the same as it was years ago. And we're from government bids to leadership. And let's not forget that Fast and Furious runs out of Tampa. Now, that's an important statement, and we'll have Susan on at a later time, and we're going to be opening up some... we've done a lot of research, or she's done a lot of research. I've talked with her over the last 2.5, 3 years, or 2.5, I'll say 2.5 years. Met her, talked to her. It was just an amazing... The amount of information she has is amazing. But here's the deal. George, she had said to me earlier, and I was kind of reluctant to even get involved in this side of it, but the things that her son, they wanted her son to do. There is an element here, and folks, again, you might think this is crazy. You've got to be a Mason. And the people who are running certain things in the government are Masons. They are, oh man, I don't even want to use Satanist, Luciferian belief system. Now, I struggle with this because I cannot. It's hard for me to even go there. All right, but there's another.
No, remember Doc Markey?
Yes.
Remember him talking about growing up in the occult?
Yes. I'm sorry. I was thinking
Book
of
the
Nathan
Dead.
Leal for a second. Yeah, okay, yeah. Doc Markey.
The rituals.
Yes.
I know it's hard for people to fathom the level of evil out there, but there are, and I don't want to put this in a percentage of Americans or percentage, but there are so many more people who are involved in Satanism and their rituals and practices, whether knowing what they're doing or not.
Right. And
then we could even imagine, I think.
Yeah, but to talk about this and to look at this from the mother's, this dear woman, I mean, she is such a great lady, and she's sensible. She's got all her wits about her. I guess what I'm saying is this: people who don't think that this is real, or just say, "Oh, you're just a conspiracy kook," let them go through please don't let them go through. Spare them the grief of the children dying. And it's you talk to a woman like this for an hour or 10 minutes or a minute, and you understand. There's this level of understanding. There's this level that rips inside of you, and just it's like you just don't even want to go there. But folks, this is happening. She said her son knew the reasons we were over there, what we were doing, and I believe her. Based on everything I've read and seen, I believe her, not just because of what she said, but because of what I've seen. And then you throw the Luciferian satanic part of this in there, and it's like, oh, I don't want to go. I just don't want to believe this. I really don't. Please. But anyway, we're going to be bringing her on, and I'm going through. She sent me so much information. And we're going to be going through this, but it's just such a mind-bending thing. I know what I didn't want to spend this much time, but I think it's important for people to understand the bigger picture. And Susan, God bless you. Thank you for listening. And by the way, George Soros, I didn't know this. Did you know he was on the board of Google? Google.
Not surprising.
And he owns, now this, I haven't verified this, but he owns stock, and some of his stock portfolios are searchable, but he owns most of the ammunition manufacturing companies.
I'm sorry for laughing. I didn't know that, and that comes as no surprise if it's true. And we have to verify this, but apparently, according to the White House and DHS, or by orders of the White House and DHS, he's only the firms where he's got the majority of control. They're selling only to government. Now, again, we have got to verify this, but it just doesn't look good, and this is very frightening and very ominous for what's coming down the pike in the future. So I just want to mention those things, and I want to thank you for sending me emails that you allow us to read on the air. God bless you. And Sandy, thank you too. Sandy, one last thing. Sandy writes, Doug, are you familiar with Noahide laws? I've never heard of them until recently. I'm not computer savvy, so I don't know how to provide the link here, but there's a 5-point, it says 6.5 series on YouTube. It's called the Noahide Deception. It's very disturbing. Well, Sandy, I just want to address this really quick because there's a lot of misinformation out there about this. There are Noahide laws. They're for, it's my understanding from talking with Orthodox Jews that I trust, and people like Rabbi Bart Zadok and others who are very knowledgeable. The Noahide laws are for righteous Gentiles. And from what I understand, and I haven't read the 7 laws, but they are very similar to the 10 Commandments.
Well,
and I could be wrong, but that's what our friend in Israel told.
Right,
basically.
Rob. Because Rob and I had long conversations about this a couple of years ago, and the Noahide laws are what the righteous Gentiles would be expected in a Jewish environment to abide by, and they're actually less. I mean, the commandments do play a role in this, but Sandy, the only thing I would say is this: be very careful of the sources. I don't believe that there's any serious problem with the Noahide laws, or there's any serious intent behind them, or any nefarious intent behind the Noahide laws. So, but again, Rob, and that's from discussing other things and discussing this with other people. I apologize. Okay, but thank you again for all of the emails and such. We do read every email, and we're behind. I'm behind.
Yeah.
Getting this out.
I'm behind too, and I just want to clarify some things for the audience because I know this week I've been kind of in and out, and my wife had some minor surgery, and she was in the hospital a little bit longer than we knew about, not from complications, but just because of the nature of the surgery, and it wasn't anything serious at all. But yesterday when I left the show, I had to pick her up at 10 o'clock at night from the hospital when she got released, so...
which is, it's kind of like not the Holiday Inn, you know.
So, yeah, I haven't checked my email for like 4 days. I got about, 6 hours of sleep, except last night I did get about 6 hours last night, but 6 hours from the previous 3 days.
Right.
It was just hectic on my end. So I apologize for anybody who did email me or contact me and I did not respond or answer accordingly.
You look and sound a lot better after you got some rest today, because, and that's one thing, folks. We were kind of making light of it earlier in the week, saying you're going a super secret mission, but really, it was no surgery is minor, and
I didn't want to say anything until she was home and
right.
Everything was okay.
But yeah, she's recovering, and praise God for that. And it just was a little bit more. Joe's minimizing it. It was a little bit more than we thought. So it took, and I watched my son go through, really 4 days of just being at the hospital 24/7, no sleep, and it was crazy. Anyway, Linda writes too, and I want to bring this out. There have been a lot of There's been a lot of drone training, and a lot of drones actually flying in the air, visible in the Fort Hood, Texas area. There's been a ton of training going on there. Linda, and I got this from Linda from that area, also from Sam and Jeff.
So training, military training?
Yes, all from the Fort Hood area of Texas. Dawn now, too. So we've got 4 people telling us that their drones are visible in the skies above Fort Hood. And Jeff says, based on his inquiries, they're they're doing drone training in that area. So if you see a drone, it's training in Fort Hood. But see, and he writes this. I asked if these were going to be used overseas or inside the United States. I received information. Okay. The answer is domestic. These are for deployment inside the United States. And when I asked where the command was, whether it was at Fort Hood, the response was it's classified.
Yeah, and that's what I mean.
Okay.
What do you expect to see here? We have them scrubbing the drone data. They scrub all the numbers through inflation to unemployment to pretty much everything. And,
wait, one more thing about the drones. I'm not sure if this is okay. The drones that I saw had, in conversation, had the ability to carry a payload.
Yep. And there are multiple sightings of drones. People who pay attention to what they see in the skies at night, who go out and watch the stars, you can see drones. You can see things flying around. There was almost a collision today.
Well, there was. How many of these have we been having? There was one at JFK.
Yeah, and it's not like the government has come out and said, the drone that almost crashed into this plane was it was a DHS drone. They deny that they're even government drones. Oh. I don't know if you saw that part, but there was a mid-air collision between a drone and a landing plane in New York City today, I think at JFK. And I don't have the story in front of me, I'm just going off memory. But during this, it was about 1,500 feet, or from what I understand, away. That's how close it was. And the Fed said, there's no, we weren't flying any drones. That wasn't us.
Well, yeah.
Who was it? Who's flying the drones? Obviously, it's a government-operated drone or local police operation.
The government provides it's under the umbrella of the federal government, but they could be universities, it could be police departments, it could be the military, which part? It could be all the above, and I think all the above is the answer. But all right,
getting into some more news, and then we'll take phone calls.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's Friday.
So free for all Friday.
This is something I wanted to hit on. NASA. NASA is warning of something happening, saying the sun. NASA gives out a warning on the sun. Something unexpected is happening there.
You know, I read this, and folks, if you are like a scientist listening, and I know we've got some people, scientists actually listen, or astronomers, help us out with this.
Yeah, and not only that, there's an asteroid, another asteroid to fly very close past Earth.
But okay, I'm concerned too about this sun issue, because it seems like we hear this only when it's either it's too late or.
Last week my weeks are getting confused. Last week or the end of the week before, they put out an alert stating the possibility for a humongous solar event, a solar flare.
Right.
Basically a warning saying a solar maximum is here, which is 2013. The sun goes through 11-year cycles, and the max is every either 11 years or 22 years. And this year is the solar max. Now, years ago, 2008, 2009, there was a big deal about it, talking about how the magnetosphere is weakened, and how solar flares, if we get one like we did in 1852, which burned the telegraph lines. And
oh, yes.
Now, an event of that scale would pretty much bring down the electrical grid of a mass portion of wherever it hit. But NASA is warning that they say 2013 is due for the solar maximum. The sun is incredibly calm right now, baffling the experts, but something unexpected is happening on the sun, NASA is warning. This year was supposed to be the year of a solar maximum, the peak of an 11-year sunspot cycle. But as the image reveals, solar activity is relatively low. Okay? Now, I want to go to a different page. This is spaceweather.com, and I'll go back to this article. But at spaceweather.com, they keep track of how many days there were with sunspots. Now, there on the left-hand column of if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see spotless days. In 2009, there were 260 spotless days. In 2010, there were 51 days without sunspots. 2011, there were 2 days without sunspots. 2012, 0 days. So there was a sunspot every day. Sunspots are where the CMEs and the solar flares eject from.
Maybe we should get Stan Dale on to say.
Right. He would be the person to talk to about this. He is.
Or if we have any scientists, astronomers out there, let us know what's your.
Yeah, and 2013 has also had 0 days without sunspots. Now, so they're saying in this article, they're saying sunspot numbers are well below their values from 2011. Well, there's been 0 days without a sunspot, so maybe they're a little bit less, but still there are.
Well, for them to see, I'm concerned of how they frame this and how they present this information. There's unusual, or I closed the window with the headline, unusual activity or whatever. What was the headline? Unusual activity?
Yeah, they say that it is the calm before the storm. NASA warns something unexpected is happening.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Happening, and it's baffling experts that the sun is so incredibly calm. But it goes on to say, experts have been baffled by the apparent lack of activity, with many wondering if NASA simply got it wrong. Now, that's ridiculous, because this is not something that NASA predicted was going to be a solar maximum year. This is based on cycles. It's like saying, during summer that the Weather Channel's wrong by calling it summer.
Well, yeah.
But
why? This is important too, because if you're driving down the road, or even if you're at home and your lights go out and everything goes out, your cell phone is dead and your cable's dead, or whatever, you're going to want to know, or at least during I think it's important to kind of anticipate, if you will, in a way, or consider what's going on. So if you know ahead of time that there's an issue with the sun, you don't think we just got EMP'd by North Korea. And we have some information about North Korea as well that we probably should get into, because this is not something, I don't believe, Joe, that this is something that we should.
Well, listen, let me go on here. It says, however, after the NASA might have got it wrong. It says,
okay,
however,
I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Solar physicist Dean Pensell of NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center believes he has a different explanation. This is solar maximum, he says, but it looks different from what we expected because it is double peaked. The last two solar maxima around 1989 and 2001 had not one but two peaks. Solar activity went up, dipped, then rose again, performing a mini cycle that lasted about 2 years, he said. The same thing could be happening now as sunspot counts jumped in 2011, dipped in 2012, he believes.
All right.
It's expected to rebound in 2013, and he's comfortable with saying that another peak will happen in 2013 and possibly last into 2014.
Wow.
He spotted a similarity between the solar cycle 24 and 14, which had a double peak during the first decade of the 20th century. If the two cycles were twins, it would mean that the peak in late 2013 and another in 2015. But anyway, the second article in less than 30 days on how something strange, unexpected, and something to watch out for will be coming from the sun. Now, this piece of news, and then we'll go to phone calls, or hit North Korea, then go to phone calls. Arkansas has passed the nation's strictest abortion laws. Arkansas legislature has overridden Governor Mike Beebe's veto legislation banning most abortions after the 12th week of pregnancy, giving the state the most restrictive abortion law in the nation. The March 6 override comes just days after the Republican-controlled legislature overrode Beebe's veto of Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Act, which prohibits most abortions after the 20th week of pregnancy. Beebe had justified his vetoes of both measures on constitutional grounds, saying that they were conflicted with the Supreme Court's Roe v. Wade ruling that effectively legalized abortion until pre-born baby can visibly survive outside the mother's womb, which most experts have placed at between 22 to 24 weeks, because it would impose a ban on women's rights to choose an elective neurotrophic abortion well before its time. Senate Bill 134 blatantly contradicts the United States Constitution as interpreted by the Supreme Court. Interpreted by the Supreme Court. The same Supreme Court that says our Fourth Amendment is nothing and the government has the right to, warrantlessly wiretap, spy, and intrude on all of our private communications and anything else they can find their way into monitoring.
Well, wait, this is a good thing in Arkansas, right?
Well, it is. A good thing in Arkansas would be to ban the abortions, period.
Well, right.
A woman's right to choose, in essence, it is a woman's right to choose, but it's a woman's right to choose murder or child.
I see where you're headed with this.
And there are certain cases. I would say, if I was a politician, and I know one politician that was taken to the rails for saying this, but in cases of rape and incest,
right,
that abortion should be allowed. Now, I'm under the belief that the taking of any life is not up to us. If God did not want it to happen, it wouldn't happen.
I think we're getting into some really sticky
and that's
territory.
Just my belief, and I'm not obviously a politician, so you guys don't have to worry about me imposing my beliefs on you. But I think the taking of a life, whether it be somebody's ideal of not being a life yet because it's not 25 and
Well, I had
taxable.
Look, I got to tell you this. I had a situation where I was personally involved in a situation where there was a possibility of having for the life of the mother of the pregnancy. Now, what do you do if you have a doctor that tells you
you can have a baby,
or if you continue this pregnancy, you're going to die.
And right, and that's a very difficult situation for any person to be in. But my advice would be, whose will are you going to carry out, yours or the Lord's? And
I think that's really the only answer. And because boy, we get into this. Not that I want to avert, or not that I don't want to get involved in this kind of conversation, but I think that we can go down. We could spend a lot of time on this without being productive, and
right.
But I think it's up to God, and I think that you should take it to prayer in such a that's just
and the people would come in and say, oh, you're part of the war on women. You don't want them to choose. How about the war on the unborn lives that are being killed?
Yeah, and
who's
people,
fighting for those people's rights? Because they are people. Just because they aren't walking and talking and aren't of the age where they can, work and be taxed and.
I looked at the pictures, the sonograms of the 6-month fetus, not fetus, the child, 6 months in the womb, and let me tell you something. That's a person. If I can identify the fingers and toes and arms and legs and head and everything else, that's a person.
Ron Paul told the story in a commercial for his presidential run, his latest presidential run, where when it was like 28 years prior as a doctor, he was in a procedure where they were performing an abortion, and he was just observing. And he says that he saw the baby delivered and placed in a trash can.
No, really?
Yeah. And there's many other stories like that you can find.
Well, the
murder, like the way that they would. The methods of
I've seen that, but Obama too has voted for killing the baby. We talked about this before, and we're getting way off track. But Obama voted for if the child's born alive to kill the child in Illinois when he was a senator in Illinois.
Infanticide, kill the child up to 6 months or 3 years, because we wouldn't want our children burdened with a mistake of a child.
It's and I guess the whole point of this is: are we not going to answer for this? Are we not going to answer for the innocent lives that have been snuffed out under the laws of this nation?
And we're answering for them now, because we're seeing the country being turned into.
Look at where we're at. That's right. I think the veil of God's protection has been lifted because of the decisions made, because of the abortions, because of the wars, because of the greed, the lust, and the only time. And I keep thinking about this so much. When's to my knowledge, the only time Jesus really got PO'd? And really showed his anger was in the temple with the money changers, and kind of like the abortion thing. The greed and the lust is what was the focus of the ire there. The same thing that we're seeing here with the economy. The bankers who are intentionally destroying the economy, and this is not a victimless crime. Obviously, a lot of people are going to starve. It's going to be such a life-changing event. One thing, I was out just real quick today, and I was out had to run an errand actually with my father-in-law and my wife, and as we're driving along, I'm just looking at everything, and I'm thinking, how could, folks, I don't know if you are in this mindset. I find myself just kind of, especially lately, thinking about this. You're looking around, you're seeing the houses, you're seeing the cars, you're seeing people going in and out of stores, you're seeing life going on as normal. And then for whatever reason, maybe you tune into our program, and now we're talking about almost like the end of the world, well, at least the end of the world that you know it. You know, that Chris Matthews describes it. We're nuts.
The end of your reality.
Yeah, and I was trying to balance the two, or allow the two to meet, and I was trying to envision as we were driving. You know, are we off base here? Is this so far off the scale? But then, you know, I asked my father-in-law, who's 80 years old, and very, very astute man, about the times when he was extremely young, and this guy's got an impeccable memory. Like I've never, in terms of, let me just say this, he can remember 1940 when he was 7 years old better than he can remember yesterday. But he was just telling me about life, you know, right after, when he was a very young child, and then the stories told by his parents who lived a long time. Yeah, you know, it can change that quickly. You could be looking at what you're seeing today, and everything appears normal, but tomorrow it could totally change. So, you know, I did kind of tap into his wisdom from his age, and he brought me kind of back to this, because it's mind-blowing. You're out there, you're doing your thing, you're working, whatever you do, or you're shopping, everything's normal. And then you come to our program, and we're talking about this kind of stuff. And it's kind of like a black and white. You know what I mean, Joe? I mean, I don't know. It's
not just we're talking about this stuff. We are reporting on things that are not being discussed in the media that should be discussed. And you know, a lot of times we are, you know, going back and forth on issues, putting our own spin on things in a way, a truthful spin.
Well, I think through a biblical worldview, but okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's such a shock to people's system that they are, you know, might hear this broadcast after, you know, if you're watching MSNBC for 7 years and calling that your news source,
or even Fox, or even or even any of the
I use MSNBC
channels,
because it is the direct mouthpiece of
the Obama
administration.
They admitted that, basically. But yeah, I guess, folks, the only reason I mention that is because sometimes it seems so, and I don't know about you folks, but to me sometimes it seems so surreal, because you know, you have to kind of like, it's almost like shaking yourself, you know, or having somebody shake you and say, wait a minute, this is how it really is. You're not seeing it because we're so in tune with the lie, and plus you're not looking in the right places, and it's very well hidden. Just like that Brennan photo, just like the Brennan oath on the draft. You know, I got to tell you,
it's a matter of perception again. What do people see as important? No.
But see, to me,
people in the left-right mindset,
this is evil to me.
Won't
if
see the evil.
Intentional. And I have to believe, I can't give Brennan the benefit of the doubt on this, because this to me would be, look at this just from the deception perspective. Folks, please don't think we're burning time up by talking about this. I just got an email saying, well, you know, just this is all part of it. Look at the symbology behind this. It's important because if this was a deliberate symbol of this is how we're going to do things, we're going to make you think that this is what we're going to do, but actually we're doing something totally different, which I believe this to represent. And folks, to me, that's sad. To me, that's sad to have to look at this and say, you know, this is right. I have to believe that this is intentionally done, and I have to believe that these people are that evil. And I guess I have to put on my big boy pants. But sometimes you just have to take a moment, take a step, and say, wait a minute, you know, just let me make sure here. Let me get my footing, make sure that I'm not really, you know, not ready for the white coats and the butterfly nets, okay? And but it's that. See, and isn't that deception? the purest. I mean, the purest form of evil. Man, that's to me that's evil. Sorry, I'm just
no, it's all right.
Tongue-tied here because I can't.
Whether on air or off air, we need to have these discussions because they help our growth, our spiritual growth. They help us understand. I mean, you could be talking to yourself like I do at home, trying to understand something that it's not clicking, and I'll talk myself through it, whether it be to myself or to somebody else, and it's needed because this is a process our minds are going through to help us better understand what we're looking at, what we're breaking down, and the way things are going. And this is what is called thinking.
Well, yes. It's a process.
Right now, it's rare to think.
Oh, thank you for that.
So
you're exactly correct.
So not only is it rare to think, but when you hear two people sitting here talking like you and me are, thinking things out more than we're going through news on a day like today, which does happen sometimes.
We don't want to be told what to think. Let's think for ourselves.
Right.
No.
And this does serve a purpose. May not serve a purpose to a lot of our audience who has already gone through this process, is already in a different stage of their growth process. But for the people who are out there listening that are new, it might open their eyes up. And what we are trying to do is just not only keep the people who have been listening to us and are knowledgeable in these areas, keep them informed, but also we need to help the new people understand. And we can't do that by starting halfway through a book. We have to go back to basics. So we cover things. We do cover things. Going back to basics a lot. We do talk things out sometimes more than we should, but it's never to kill time. Trust me, this show goes by so fast. We don't need to kill time.
Yeah. Well, I got to say this too. With my father-in-law and my wife, we did take him out for a cup of coffee just to get him out. And well, I'll just leave it at that. But we were at this restaurant, very popular restaurant, and the way the booth and the tables are set up, there was like a half a wall separating our booth from someone else's, and there was three people at the next table.
Is this about somebody's conversation?
Yeah, and you know how and I know you guys do this, folks. I know you listeners, every one of you, I know you do this. You eavesdrop. Oh, yes. Well, I was sitting at the end, and I'm listening to there was an older gentleman and maybe his son or son-in-law or something, and then a younger girl at the table, and they were talking about the gun laws. And I thought, wow, how great is this, And the older gentleman said, we cannot allow these people, and he called them, well, he said, we can't allow the Democrats to take over and to ban the guns. And the young kid said, well, what do you care? You're basically
Okay, we are reconnected, live, back on track after that drone threw that EMP attack right over our house. Thankfully, my dad had his tinfoil antenna he threw out in front and blocked most of it.
That's right.
Save the day. Our electronics are still alive.
We have a chaff cannon filled with tinfoil, and we also have helmets for us.
We have our anti-drone defense system set up, so if they do come back, we don't have to manually take care of it anymore.
Right next to our tyranny defense.
I mean, goodness.
Well, yeah, we apologize for that. With this,
we talked about this. You guys might have heard some of this. The internet does not cut off during the day. It does not cut off at night. It does not cut off only when we do this show.
And yeah, it's kind of interesting, but
and even on Troy's end, it cuts off.
Did anyone hear me kick the file cabinet?
Well, that would be odd if they did, because I don't think you kicked it.
All right.
You looked like you wanted to, but
well, it was in the other room, and that was kind of okay. Anyway, I guess we can just kind of stop that conversation or switch gears. But I just want to say that I got an email yesterday too from someone listening in another country or in another state, as far west as you can possibly go. They said, "Look, if you can't get your act together with your audio, then I'm going to stop listening." Yeah, and very, very belligerent.
Yes, we've
closing.
Had a few of those. I've got some that I haven't even forwarded to you, but people ask, why you have the most sound problems. What's wrong with you? Why can't you get it together?
And if
and I'll tell you what, we've spent more time
and money,
not only on equipment,
but on people.
Constantly, I mean, there's at least once a month we've had people in here, and I say once a month.
On average, yeah. I mean, if you average it out. And with the technical...
Paying people to come in here, make sure the sound is hooked up right, make sure the EQs on the mixer is all hooked up right. They've changed plugs, connections. We've replaced every piece of equipment more than once.
Yeah, I don't think we have an original...
Went from low gear, low tech to high tech, back to low tech.
To middle tech, to no tech, to the hamster feeding
and
the
then
gerbils.
You got Skype and BTR. Now, you listen through the feed on Christians United Broadcasting Network, the sound is completely different. It sounds crystal clear. But Blog Talk Radio sound apparently is not that clear.
And BTR, by the way, is where our archives are. So,
and the archives come out better in sound
than
regular broadcast. So it's a BTR overload, a Skype overload. It's definitely not a lack of our internet connection or bandwidth abilities because...
Oh, man, if it is, we've got the highest...
your bills online and show you.
And plus... So the only reason we mention this is because I think, and I did talk with another broadcaster about this because it makes us look like a couple of amateurs, and every time it does, I feel like it marginalizes our effect. And one of the other broadcasters says, and this is somebody pretty much everyone knows. He said, "You guys are definitely causing some people to get nervous and." There will be more of these.
Yeah.
And there will be other, like, for example, why isn't Alex+Jones affected? Well, when you've got a budget of $500,000, and God bless him, he's doing a great job, okay?
Right.
Or, whatever it is.
And the technology, I mean, when you look at, like, the Glenn Becks and the Alex+Jones, the people who have their own, when I say studio here, I mean, I'm talking a whole different level. They have, like, an actual TV studio. They have their own servers. They have their own
channel,
budget for that.
Right. So we're doing the best we can. I guess that without really drawing this out, we're doing the best we can with what we have, and it's not a matter of us just not caring about it.
All right, I'm going to hit this last piece of news and play this quick audio clip. We're going to go to break and come back with nothing but your phone calls for the third hour. Senator Dianne Feinstein makes a wild claim while pushing gun control agenda at a Senate committee hearing. Now, this is the 58-second clip entitled, "Legal to Hunt Humans."
Time has come, America, to step up and ban these weapons. The other very important part of this bill is to ban large-capacity ammunition feeding devices, those that hold over 10 rounds. We have federal regulations and state laws that prohibit hunting ducks with more than 3 rounds, and yet it's legal to hunt humans with 15 rounds, 30 rounds, even 150-round magazines. Limiting magazine capacity is critical because it is when a criminal, a drug dealer, a deranged individual has to pause to change magazines and reload that the police or brave bystanders have the opportunity to take that individual down. We saw this scenario happen in Tucson, Arizona, where the madman who shot our
All right, folks, you're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report on this. Hi, folks, Doug Hagmann here. You might know me as the co-host from the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, or as a frequent guest on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. If you're like me, you're tired and confused over today's headlines. You just don't know where to turn for accurate, concise information about really what's going on, what's truly going on in today's society. If you don't know where to turn for accurate, well-researched, and properly vetted news, I've got a suggestion. In fact, it's a requirement. Bookmark Canada Free Press. That's canadafreepress.com on the internet. It's just not for Canada. It's for news across the world. Judy McLeod, founding editor, has put together a vast array of talented writers like Kelly O'Connell, Daniel Greenfield, Dr. Eilida Johnson-Powell, a lot of guest columnists, very talented writers. Folks, that's Canada Free Press at canadafreepress.com. Now mobile friendly. Follow on Facebook, because without America...
You better wake up fast and listen to this, America. The Obama campaign has launched attack squads disguised as truth teams dedicated to intimidating and silencing all political dissent carried over the internet that criticizes the Marxist Obama. Truth Squad specifically focused on covering up Obama's endless trail of lies, corruption, and subversion, and using the Gestapo power of our own government to police and censor the internet and shut down websites that dare to carry the real truth about Obama's Marxist coup. Remember the names of these Gestapo-style agencies at work right there in your neighborhood: KeepingHisWord.com, KeepingGOPHonest.com, and AttackWatch.com. KGB, SS, and Gestapo-style police-state gangster organizations at work to silence the important voices of patriot dissent, some of which have already been shut down by Obama's orders. Adolf Hitler would have been proud. We're the 21st century Tea Party patriots.
Doug Hagmann. One guy that doesn't need a bullhorn to get your attention.
You want answers. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
Yeah, well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to this live broadcast. It's Friday, the 8th day of March, 2013. I'm Doug Hagmann. In studio with me is my son, co-host, investigator extraordinaire, Joe Hagmann. And, of course, we are the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. This hour, we're going to be talking to you to find out what's on your mind. Once again, two things of note before we get into your phone calls, and we're going to hit by order of hold time. But two things. The Vatican, and I just want to reference this, the Vatican, the 8th General Conclave is going to be meeting starting on March 12th, right? Is that
Tuesday?
Tuesday.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, my headphones went out there for a second. Okay. There's talk about this being about a 10-day... no longer than 10 days. But I guess now, will this not be the time now to determine if Tom Horn, Chris Putman, and everyone else is correct about, will this not bear out?
Now, think about this. Last week, or I'm sorry if I'm wrong, the week before, this last 2 weeks have been merging together. We talked about the Pope changing the law for them to be allowed to start the conclave prior to the date of the resignation of the Pope, which is February 28th, which
Correct.
They never
did.
Correct. In fact, it looks like they delayed it. They should have started it the day after he resigned.
Well, but I do know, just like with the internal politics here in the United States, when things are, the senators and stuff, representatives going out to their home countries out west, remember a lot of these laws are based on the old travel time. It would take you a long time to get to Rome, by ship, by steamship, that type of thing. But my question is this, looking at this March 12th date, what is the significance of this this conclave beginning on March 12th.
Well, I've seen lots of people making a case for the significance of the date of March 22nd.
Yeah,
March 21st also, which is the equinox, I think, the spring equinox. And March 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. I've seen lots of stories and YouTube videos of people making a case that it is the start of something, that something will happen. It is a Skull and Bones date, an Illuminati date, a date to watch.
Well, I think this way. Yeah, I think it's worth our investigative interest and time and research just to watch what's going on and consider all of the various nuances of the conclave, of what's going on at the Vatican, for a couple of reasons. Number one, the Vatican Bank. Now, this, again, we're not taking Catholics to task. This is not about the Roman Catholic religion. This is about the politics at the Vatican and the bank, two separate things. Having said that, I think because of their involvement, and don't forget, the Rothschilds essentially own the Vatican Bank. I think it's necessary for us to watch this. That's number one. Number two, Petrus Romanus, Tom Horn, and Chris Putnam, great guys. This will be, I suppose, the litmus test, or this will bear out the timing. The timing of the Pope being selected in Obama's trip, and all this needs to be taken into consideration and kept a very close eye on. And one kind of unrelated but somewhat related thing when you consider dates, something that caught my eye, folks. I don't know if any listeners caught this or not. Having a television in the studio or in my office as well has its benefits, of course, for news and such. I happen to see today a movie is coming out. Today is the first day it's playing, apparently. Something about the Wizard of Oz. Have you seen any of that? No. Okay, The Power of Oz, or something to that effect. I don't know the exact name. I just caught it today. It's premiering today, March 8th. And I know that the Wizard of Oz is big in conveying certain. It's a vehicle for mind control, and you might think that's ridiculous, but trust me, do the research, you'll find out it is. Now, that said, The Power of Oz on March 8th, 2013, and we know that whether or not we really care about this or give one iota about this, to most of us, normal people, it doesn't matter, but to people that are involved in these satanic, ritualistic kind of things, numbers are important. Again, it's not what we believe, it's what they believe. So March 8th, 3-8 or 8-3, regardless of what continent you're on or how you want to do that with European dating system or American, it comes out to an 11, and then you've got 11-2013. It's 11 and 13. It's kind of if you get into the numerology aspect of this, plus the content of the movie, I got to tell you, I don't know what the movie's about, but just from the name of it, it tells me that there's things that we have to the things that bear watching. And the folks that understand what I'm talking about, you can email me with your thoughts. The folks that don't understand or don't care, well, I just wasted a minute of your time.
If you don't understand, then send questions. But yeah, let's go to the phones.
Let's do this. All right, let me. Thanks for letting me have the button here. All right, we're going to go to once again. We're looking at how many or who's on hold the longest. We're going to go to the 303 area code. 303, you're up with Doug and Joe Hagmann.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, sir.
Well, this is another great show in a row because you guys are touching on a lot of interesting subjects. I think one of the things that we all need to do at home is unplug the TVs and get away from it, because that has a lot of effect on the way we cope with things and our critical thinking, and especially our critical thinking.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And we don't need to be told how to think. You don't want to be told how to think. I don't want to be told how to think. And certainly we're not going to tell other people how to think. So,
and he hit on a very important point, coping.
Coping?
A coping mechanism. It is a way to an escape from what is really going on.
Oh, yeah. Caller, I could sit and watch old movies from the 40s and 50s all day long, if just as an escape mechanism.
Like our show, this is how we cope with what's going on, by coming on the radio and talking.
Yeah, actually, that's true. But you, caller, yeah. Now, what else?
Well, you guys were talking earlier about abortion, and abortion's just wrong. Life begins at conception, and we know that. With the advent of Planned Parenthood and prophylactics and birth control, they've really muddied the water. And liberal, conservative, non-political, this woman's right to choose issue is pretty much a woman's right to kill. And if it's within her own body, it's okay. But, I mean, it's wrong, and we should all know that. We should feel that in the spirit and have better discernment.
I agree with that. And, of course, you've got that, I guess it's the judgment factor as well, because we cannot expect to engage in this type of behavior with God being a just Father. We cannot expect to engage in this behavior without punishment or without the veil of protection being lifted. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. It comes down to Rabbi Kahn's Harbinger, and it should be the focus on everybody in the Truth and Freedom movement, because everything about 9/11 is fishy. We understand that. Going over the minutiae of details gets us lost in the details. We need to realize how many babies have died since this despicable law was passed, since the moral fiber of this country was ripped out. How many people aren't here making a difference? It's like that article that was on Ford's News where the man had a vision of heaven, and he was an atheist his whole life. But the young children in heaven worshiping Jesus, worshiping God, and he equated it to the abortions. There's no wonder, because they go straight to heaven.
You bring up a couple of great points, and I think that how many people were murdered that could have been the answer to cancer, or could have been the answer to whatever, and but even without regard to that, how much blood are on our hands, since 1973, and even before that, when it wasn't made the law of the land, but the states still did it, and whatever. But the morality. But see, here's the thing. Don't you think, caller? And I'll posit this to the entire audience. Just because it's legal doesn't mean you have to engage in this behavior. It's more of a legal. You're
talking legal in God's law and legal versus man's law.
Right. I mean, let's say it's legal to do 85 miles an hour in Wyoming. It doesn't mean you have to do 85 miles an hour. So certainly, it's not a behavior or an activity, whatever you have to engage in. So it's so looking at it that way, it comes back to our problem, doesn't it? The people who are engaged in this behavior. Just because it's legal doesn't mean it's right. I don't know. Maybe I'm caller. I don't mean to take your time, but
no. This is a learned behavior. Watching TV, these different programs. They call it a program for a reason, because it's done a good job erasing the values of our nation. And again, going back to the Harbinger, we absolutely parallel Israel. We are a nation founded on God's grace, and our whole first elected government got down on their knees and represented that as such. And even George Washington said, if for 1 second we take God out of this nation, God will take his protection away, and we will be destroyed. Going back to Israel, when they started worshiping pagan deities and taking their faith and their love away from God, they began to sacrifice children to Mahok, the same owl that you find in the Bohemian Grove.
Right.
It's this deity, it's this satanic pagan worship where they would throw their children on the fire and boil them to death, or put it in the mouth of a gigantic ceramic or whatever it was owl, because they couldn't feed their baby, because they couldn't care for their baby. God makes a way. God has always made a way. I mean, how many children are actually planned? But God is in control. He chooses our families for us, because none of us would choose the families we're in. But again, we're blessed to be in this situation because God is in control. We've lost control of our values. We've lost control of our critical thinking. Everybody's looking for a coping mechanism, and a lot of people, unfortunately, find it in these programs, which are disgusting. American Idol. And
yes.
any of the
name says it all.
Housewives. It's just the fabric of this country has been disintegrated. We're talking all day long, and we're now discussing killing American citizens if you have associations of associations. We're being threatened right now by a belligerent North Korea, which is the junkyard dog for China.
Thank
They're
you
running
for saying
interference so
Yes.
Iran can rise in their nuclear power, and we're in the crosshairs here. We're facing Iran and North Korea and their nuclear capabilities, and then behind the scenes you have China and Russia, and then the increasing United Nations, Russian troops being seen here. We have been occupied. We are being occupied, and the writing's on the wall, and it's just unfortunate. But to touch on thou shalt not kill, the way I understood it and heard in the past is that the translation of kill was meant murder. Thou shalt not murder. Because, in the different sacrifices, especially in the book of Leviticus, you slaughter or you kill an animal. And there's a scripture, I don't exactly know, but I know it's in the Torah for sure. If a man comes to kill you, rise early and kill him first. But don't do so out of, glee or happiness. Don't be happy about what you do. But we have always had the right to protect our lives, the lives of our family, and our property from an out-of-control government and criminal element alike.
Not only a right, caller, but I think we have a responsibility. A responsibility to our families, a responsibility to ourselves, a responsibility to our Father in heaven who put us here. I mean, that's just my view. But I think you are correct based on, merging the Old Testament with present day. I believe you're correct in what you're saying. Now, others might take issue because you're quoting something from an Old Testament, but I believe that doesn't. Just because it's in the Old Testament, it does not mean that it's not operable today. So I believe what you're saying. I think you've got a case there. More than that, I think it's like I said, it's our responsibility. Anything else before we cut you loose?
Well, I remember something Steve Quayle said. He said, this is absolutely responsibility of a man to protect his family, and people that are they're not for violence. They're like they'd pray for both his wife that was being raped and the person that was raping his wife. You have an obligation to do something on the spot, and for somebody to reduce what our responsibility is to such a ridiculous thing, I'll keep in prayer before and after anything I would have to do, but I'm not looking forward to anything like that. I hope it never crosses my path. I hope it doesn't cross any of the callers' paths either, but we have to be real. We can see through the news cycle and what's really going on in this country, and just to touch on what Brennan did today, absolutely he did that on purpose. There's no question about it.
Yeah, the more I consider this, I have to agree with you, and I think Joe, what? Yeah, he's shaking his head. All right.
Yeah, I'm shaking my head because I was looking at phone numbers.
No, I think you're right though. I think that it's that evil. The whole process has descended to a level of evil where deception now is the norm, not the abnormal. And
normalization is anything but normal.
Scott, God bless you, my friend. Oh, go ahead.
Absolutely. I think the Nazi Goebbels said it best. It's not a small lie. You want to give it a grand lie. You want to give it a big lie, because that's what the people are going to believe hands down. Because you make a white lie, no one's going to believe it. This is going to be a gigantic lie. Everyone's going to get scared, and of course they're going to believe it. Bless you both in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach. Thank you guys for your time.
Blessings. God bless.
God bless you, Scott.
He made some very good points there, and I don't know. It's just kind of it's hard. Like I said, it's hard to fathom. Okay, we're going to go back here. Keep rolling. Want to go to the 903 area code. 903. You're up with Doug and Joe.
Hey, how you doing, gentlemen?
Very well.
Tip off for you guys. I got this as my wife was going into work here, but she had mentioned somebody saying on Fox that Obama had released something saying that anybody that had was slandering him or talking out against him could be thrown in the clinker by the cops. So I haven't been able to check this out of my feeds yet, but just a shout out to anybody on that, especially us that have a voice out there. Next thing I'd say is the Know Your Enemy series by the Field Project on YouTube is absolutely the best series I've ever seen to actually lay down this entire plan from start to finish for anybody that's new out there. I can't think of something better for somebody to watch. So definitely take a look at that. And for all of us that are really old hat and have studied this, all I can tell you, gentlemen, is it's worse. It's kind of like quoting Alex+Jones. He says that that some of us that have been studying it for so long, it's just so much worse. It's hard to
expand on that.
Convey it to other people, but it really is worse than you can really express to somebody because they don't quite understand it all.
When you say it's worse, I mean, can you just expand on what you mean? Because maybe I didn't catch it. What are you saying is worse at this point, or has been exacerbated?
Well, the entire plan is worse.
Oh, okay.
I've called in before. We were talking about the Great Leveling. This is the bankruptcy of the United States to bring it down to a third world status so that we can bring up the other third world countries so that there's a one world government. That's the only thing that makes economic sense when you think of it globally.
Okay, that does make sense.
Yeah, so I mean, it really is that bad when you look at the re-education and you look at what the Weather Otherground was going to do, and then now you see that there's a puppet that was trained by those guys that's actually here now. When you see that there actually is plans for re-education camps and FEMA coffins and DARPA attack dogs and all this other stuff, when you actually do this research, like some crazies like me do, and Alex+Jones, Alan Watt, these guys that have really studied these guys for a long time. And for me, I look at it in the occultic end because that's where I came from. So I know what they say from a whole different end. But
well, the occult is it not right that the occult is the driving factor behind this, isn't it?
And that's exactly why the Know Your Enemy series is so good. Because what most people don't understand is this whole thing goes back down to the Babylonian mystery religions. Masonry goes back down to the Babylonian mystery religions. Theosophy goes back down to the Babylonian mystery religions. Wiccan, all of these other religions all go back down to Nimrod, Semiramis, and Tammuz.
Yep, Nimrod.
Wow. Thank you for that.
They all go back there, and they will actually admit that. If you get deep into Masonry, you'll see Osiris, Isis, and Horus. Same thing as Nimrod, Semiramis, and Tammuz.
Yep.
It's the same thing. It goes back there, and what people need to understand is that we are going back to Babylon. That's where we're going.
Exactly. Yeah, you're exactly right.
We're going back to that point, and the only eventuality for us Christians is to realize we're going back to Babylon. When you realize that, then you can get your head around the fact of how evil this really is. And
Yeah.
you got to realize that these guys are really crazy, evil people. When you look at the Rothschilds' prophecy, look at that. Google that one up.
Yes.
Where you know, where they were told, hey, you guys are getting the Antichrist. You know, and there's a lot of convoluted thing about that. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. But what's interesting is what they say. When they say, hey, the deal's already been penned for Jerusalem, it's already been broken down, there's a Rothschild's temple that's going to be a one-world temple, the new pope is going to show up there and break ground and usher in the one world faith, what do you say? Well, you don't, because you're not the one that said it. They did.
That's
right.
right.
Money, man. No,
and going back to your point about religion, the New Age religions, these Scientology, the whole New Age movement goes back to Nimrod. Not only that, paganism. If you go study the roots of paganism, it basically breaks down to religious institutions set up by Cain, passed down to Nimrod, which expanded them to the Babylon Empire and what we see today.
And caller, let me ask you something, okay? Because the occult, and even, let me add another word into this, and the Masonic aspect of this, and people may disagree, but that's okay. When you go to Washington, D.C., like when I was there numerous times, you look at the Washington Monument, you look at it as a monument, or New York City, you look at the Statue of Liberty, but when you research the origins, isn't it surprising to find out, for example, really the Washington Monument, what that represents, and
it actually sort of doesn't, because it actually shows that there's the architecture there. It's New Rome. There's a perfect square binding a Bible at the bottom of the Washington Memorial. I mean, come on. All you need to do is do the research, and you find out what this whole thing is. Because actually, that was the point I wanted to mention to you guys. One of the reasons why I called is because there's a duality that is Masonic, right?
Yes.
And for that matter, for Luciferians, right? It's a light outward appearance and dark inside, the checkerboard of Masonry, right? So, these people actually do look like the angel of light to everyone else. These are politicians, these are religious leaders, these are all these guys, right? All these guys. But inwardly, they do these dark things in these dark times, just, like the stories in the Bible, right, where they were doing these crazy things in the temple. It's the same thing. Throughout the ages, we've had these dualistic people that look good, but they do all these crazy things. And when you realize that this is what exactly the plan has always been, they have an agenda. This stuff is always driving towards an agenda, and that agenda is exactly what they said. I mean, come on, when Morals and Dogma says the Third World War is going to be the fight between the Muslims and the Christians, what do you say?
That's
you know what I mean? What do you say?
Yeah.
We're here, and it's happening. This was a long stinking time ago, and this guy that got visited by a demon said this is going to happen, and he just happened to be a high-level Mason?
Exactly.
It's architected. They did this. They planned this. It's always been the scheme, because their great architect, the God that's above all the other gods in Masonry, is Lucifer himself.
Exactly.
End of story.
Well, I'll tell you what. Go ahead, Joe.
No, caller, I just want to say thank you. You added a lot of very important issues to hit on, yeah. And we're going to cut you loose, and I'm going to just expand on what you were finishing up there saying, and I want to thank you for your call. God bless you. You have a great weekend.
Oh, not a problem. Great job, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. And what the caller was referring to Nimrod and the old Babylonian system, and we mentioned this previously, recently, about the Tower of Babel, what they were trying to create with that. Nimrod had the spirit of the Antichrist in him. He wanted to he did set up everything against God of Israel, the God we know today to be the true God, and he set up the Tower of Babel because of the judgment. He wanted a one-world government system, and that's when the tower was destroyed and God scattered the people and changed their languages so they couldn't communicate anymore because they wanted to build a tower all the way to heaven.
And just quickly before we go back to the phones, I think that the more people who begin to realize how long ago this was started and crafted and set up, and to see it and to study it and go through the ages, holy cow, it's an awakening. And the point about the Washington Monument I made is just because how many people go there and they look at it just as a monument without any type of symbolism behind it or the incorrect symbolism, and then when you find out what it really represents and why it's there, and oh my goodness, now you start, and that's when at least I begin to say, is this real?
Yeah.
All right. So
in Second Thessalonians,
I can never pronounce that.
It says chapter 2 verse 3, let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come except there be or come a falling away first,
right? That
the man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, shewing himself that he is God. Remember ye not that when I was with you, I told you these things, and you now withholdeth that might be revealed in his time, for the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Only he who now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way, and then shall the wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy them with the brightness of his coming. And even him whose coming is after the work of Satan, with all the power and signs and lying wonders, and with all the deceivableness and unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this cause God shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie.
Oh, okay. And even though that's cumbersome because of the translation, the message is clear.
Yeah.
All right, back to the phones, and thank you very much for holding. We're taking everyone by hold time. I want to thank you for your patience. We're going to go to West Virginia right now. West Virginia, how's it going in West Virginia? You're up with Doug and Joe. We're going to 304 area code. I could have been wrong in my geographical location. 304, you're up with Doug and Joe. You know what? I think we might have lost the 304 area code. We're going to put you back on hold, come back to you. We're going to, okay, the next one up is we're going to Donna. Donna, it's 71, I believe this is Donna, 719. 719, you're up with Doug and Joe.
Hi, Doug. Hi, Joe. You guys have a great show, and I'm still listening to you. I'm sorry they cut you off or whatever they do to you.
Yeah, no, they slapped us around a little bit.
Yeah, that even makes me want to listen to you guys more. Actually.
Wow, you hear that, guys?
Yeah, it does, because I tell you, it does. What I wanted to call and say was that actually I've been trying to wake my family up, and I was threatened with being put in an institution.
Are you serious? Are you being serious?
I'm being serious. No, my sister and I got into it. She thinks that I'm trying to wake her up, and her idea is that she doesn't want to hear it anymore. I just want to bury my head in the sand. I can't listen to you. I don't want to know. You really need to be put in an institution. My therapist says that you're totally crazy. Whatever.
Her therapist.
Yeah, she's
also going to get her doctorate to be a therapist. So I guess they have to see therapists. I don't know.
But you are the topic of you and your content you're speaking to her about are the topic of conversations in her therapy sessions?
I guess so.
Well, Joe,
along with the other family, because I became a Christian and that really offended everybody.
I mean, what does that say?
Well, hang on a second. We can't let this go. Your conversion to Christianity offended your family?
Yeah.
Are they? No, I'm not being smart when I ask this question. Seriously, are they pagan? Are they Jewish? Are they anti-Christian?
What do you call that when you think God is in everything? The earth, there's no Satan, God's loving, caring, Joel Osteen. I don't know what they call that. I'm not real sure what the actual
New Age, I
term
guess,
is.
right?
Yeah,
yes,
just the,
very New Age. Shirley MacLaine, all that good stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you are loving and you love other people and you're a good person, that's all that matters.
Right, and of course
the
Earth
system.
Wow. Well, Donna, that's wow.
It's not so much. I mean, it's okay. I'm a little bit alone in that. It does get depressed. I guess it's depressing to study this stuff. I can't say it isn't, but it's also liberating to know the truth. The truth is that Jesus is the Son of God. He came to save the world, and that he rose up from the dead, and he is the only way to heaven. That's it. That's the bottom line. You can't write the fence on that one. However, what I wanted to say is the gentleman that called about abortion, it's in Jeremiah, because he specified, God specified that he made Jeremiah in his mother's womb. When I read that, because I had became a Christian prior to being a Christian, I thought it was a woman's right to choose like everybody else, and then I had to repent of that because that blood was on my hands because I had voted that way. However, reading that passage in Jeremiah just really hurt. I mean, I wept. It was like, oh my, all those poor children that weren't born. But
well, thank the Lord that you came to that revelation, because so many people don't,
Yeah, I do praise the Lord for that I came to know the truth. And that we do have to become our own doctors, and we're talking about buying alcohol. I studied herbology, and when I had a company, I used to make herbal tea, but one of the things you can do with alcohol, like vodka, you can take stuff horsehound. I'm just going to use not the Latin terms because it's easier for people. Horsehound's an expectorant. Elderberry, by the way, if you use water, half vodka, and you mix it up. You used to call it tinctures. I think by law it's called extracts now. I don't know. Elderberry is very good for pneumonia and cough syrups and stuff. Horsehound, you can mix them, and you can do where you make them and mix them together, and you can create like a cough syrup, an expectorant. Becoming our own doctors, I guess what I'm trying to tell your audience is to get books and herbs that you can grow. There's certain, what is it, thyme, oregano. I can't think of them all right offhand, but those kind of books where you can start doing your own natural healing can become very effective, when there's a time when we can't get to a doctor or something. So I could try to get together. It was years of work I did on that, but you can find tons of books on it, and it's a very good thing for people out there who, essential oils that you can get. You put them on the spine, like when you have a cold. Basil, oregano. Oregano is really good in basil, and you put them right on the spine, and with a little olive oil, so they don't burn, and then put a hot towel right on the spine area when you have a cold. And you'll find that will actually help you work through the cold quicker. So there's things you can do that you don't have to go to the doctor and get antibiotics, acognasia. Don't use golden seal. Everybody uses golden seal all the time. You're not to use them like that. You use them for a certain amount of time and then stop. And then I haven't really studied colloidal silver. Somebody was telling me that they use it. I haven't studied it enough to say whether or not it's good or bad, but I've heard that is very good too. You just don't do it every day. Again, it's like anything else. You do it, but you have to do a lot of probiotics with that too. So those are things that people can do that should be put into their when you're setting up your food and all that, is to keep that in mind and to get books on it and study that, because they may have to. Of course, prayer. Don't ever forget to pray, because prayer helps. Prayer is the most important of everything.
Well, we might have to institutionalize you.
I know, but you can stand in line with the rest of the family. They have to prove that I'm crazy, and they're in California, and I'm in Colorado, so they're going to actually have to come here and do it. Anyway, I was sad. You know what made me more sad isn't the fact that, it was the fact that they really didn't, the whole idea of I want to bury my head in the sand and keep taking loans to go to college for a job that may or may not exist, or an economy that may or not exist, or even a country that may or may not exist. But I don't want to know. I just want to bury my head in the sand, and I don't want to know any of this. And I thought, what was more sad? The fact that, yes, maybe what I study is a little bit depressing, but there's things you can do about it. You can join things like Act for America. There's other conservative sites you can join. There's just,
Well,
there's
what,
you can do.
Donna and Joe and I were talking
get
about
that
this
extra can of soup.
Exactly. And when Joe and I were talking about this, if you had, it's like having we'll say cancer, and wouldn't you want to know that you've got cancer so you can act and have the tumor excised or taken out or have some treatment done rather than just ignoring it and letting it grow and getting worse and over to it's the same thing in our view. So
I don't know. I can't equate it because I was told not to talk. I can't talk about religion or politics with them anymore. Nothing.
Well,
so anyway, I just found it sad, and it just made me sad that they. And I think the saddest thing is when things do fall apart.
They'll be coming to you. They'll be coming to you.
Yeah, but like you said, there may not. Like I tried to tell her, there may come a time when you can't call me, and I can't loan you money because I don't have it because they took it from me. But I will have food.
Well, let's see.
I'm trying to make a laugh out of it, but that point could come where the phone doesn't work. There's no way to get through. And, at least, get a can of food. Like you were saying, so you could buy an extra can of soup, whatever it is you guys eat. I'm not familiar with the diet, but, start making preparations and my mother has a garden, start canning that stuff, getting that stuff, so that you're prepared for that. And, of course, don't take out any more loans. It's ridiculous to spend that much money on school when there's other ways to do it without taking out huge loans like that, and on an economy that may or not even be, or a job. Even if the world is what it is today, she's going to have, a $300,000 loan. What job is she going to get? Who's going to have the money to pay her $100 an hour or $125 an hour? Wow. I don't even have that kind of money.
$300,000 in debt. Oh.
Well, that just seems like a lot to me to go into debt for something in 5 years that may or may not, the economy in terms of, even if we're existing at the level we are now, I couldn't even afford her services. And so,
well, maybe
and then
family discount.
And then I brought up something. She said something about the debt would be relieved if she went to work for the government. Now, we didn't get into that aspect, but that kind of scares me because her degree is in, I don't know what the mind.
Like a jubilee?
It's how to mess with people's minds. So what if you were given a...
Donna, what you said, I had received an email from someone who was in a position to go to school, not through the military, but if they promised or if they signed some sort of a contract to work for the federal government in a certain capacity, and they would have to work for the federal government for a period of, I think it was 24 months. Or maybe even 30 months. It was like 2 years, 2.5 years. Their school loans would be forgiven through the federal government or paid, whichever is most appropriate. And I have not followed up on this, but you bring up a good point. This is not the first time I've heard this, folks. If you have any information about it, please send me an email about this.
Well, what if she was asked to do something like break somebody? To do harm to somebody in that position. Yeah, great, this sounds good, but then I'm going to ask you to go in and break that Christian and make them renounce their God. There's a moral dilemma there. At least in my mind, that would be the first thing that pops up in my head as a moral dilemma. And, oh, by the way, he wanted to know how many babies have been killed. Well, to date, approximately 400 million, I think is what I read last, plus, because it accumulates daily. So there, to answer the other caller. So, yeah.
Wow.
So anyway, wanted to call you guys. You guys are doing a great job. I'm going to keep listening to you. The more they keep knocking you off, the more it makes me want to listen to you.
Oh, well, thank you. And maybe that'll provide a disincentive to stop.
Well,
all right.
Patience. We have to have patience.
Exactly.
That's what I'm learning anyway. So God bless you both. Thank you so much for your program. Keep up the good work. We're all listening.
Donna, God bless you. Great to hear from you. Have a great weekend.
Okay, bye.
Very interesting. Very interesting about that. We have to follow up on that school thing because I did.
Yeah, Area code 516. You've been on hold the whole program. Thanks for holding. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Area code 516. You're live.
You're up. All right.
And you're gone. We'll try again before the end of the show. Area code 717. You're up next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. 717.
Hello?
Yes.
You're up.
How you doing?
Very well. What's on your mind?
How you doing, Doug and Joe? Great to be on with you guys.
Great to have you.
You guys. Something that you guys were saying, and you were making a point about, I think it was you, Doug, you were talking about the movies and how the symbolism is there, and you're talking about Oz.
Yes, sir.
And just to throw out something that maybe you guys haven't saw or maybe thought about, I've been watching, kind of the way that the elitists or the Illuminati, whoever you want to call them, is putting like these messages out there. I don't know if you guys looked into this, but during the Super Bowl, this last Super Bowl with Beyonce, there was a lot of symbolism she was throwing up, and everybody was focused on that. But the lights went out on half of the stadium, and it went out for exactly 33 minutes, which if you study Masons, it's the highest degree is 33.
Right, exactly.
And then,
exactly right. Yep. Yeah,
the lights came back on. The lights came back on exactly at 9:11 that evening. That's when
Eastern
the lights fully
time,
came
right?
back on, Eastern time. And then there was some commercials for movies and the commercials during the Super Bowl. And one of them stood out to me. It was Oblivion. It's a new movie coming out by Tom Cruise, who's heavy into Scientology and a lot of other things. But in this movie, it's all about the Earth being totally destroyed. And he gets onto a plane and he dives through Triketra, which is the three-sided, symbol that means, the fusion of two-strand DNA into a third strand of DNA, kind of making this God-man, or what. There's a lot of New Age and Masonic meaning to that symbolism. But when he dives through it, he lands on this destroyed planet Earth, and he's walking to a stadium, and he says these words. He says, "This is where the last Super Bowl was played." And he starts describing the Super Bowl to us. And it's amazing that was shown to us right at that point of us watching the Super Bowl, and you have all this symbolism going on. And not only that, you have the Dark Knight, where Sandy Hook was in the Dark Knight on a map.
Oh, yes.
And in Dark Knight, they destroy a stadium. It was the Steelers Stadium. And when they destroyed it, they blew up a box, and the mayor was in that box. And when you look up at that box, there's the number 322, which is the exact number that goes for Skull and Bones. So, and then they have a movie coming out, which is called, it's about the White House getting destroyed. And it's coming out on March 22nd.
Right.
And it's called Olympus. And it's all about them coming and destroying Washington, D.C. and taking over our government. So it's like this date, this 322 keeps on showing up in all the symbolism in all these movie trailers and these things that they're putting out there. So I've just been seeing that constantly over and over. I just wanted to make you guys aware of that. I mean, I'm not trying to put that as a definite date, but for some reason it's out there. Sorry to cut you off.
Well, no. When you say that, I don't look at it like as a date. For example, 3/22, March 22nd, is a date for something to happen. I look at it more of a stamp that kind of like code for the insiders. No, kind of like saying, hey, all you insiders, look, pay attention to this movie or pay attention to this, because instead of a date, it's more like a stamp of this is an insider secret code type of thing to not a date, but a verification that this is kind of from within their realm. I don't know if I made that clear. It's kind of a nebulous thing to talk about.
And another point you were making was you were saying that they're setting off this left-right, Democrat versus Republican type of war going on, civil unrest. And if you looked at the Sports Illustrated had 4 magazine covers that tied into the Super Bowl, and these were the titles for these magazine covers. It said, "There will be blood, there will be gore, there will be a rivalry, and it had the two brothers, which were the two coaches, and it was almost like symbolizing this rivalry of left-right going on.
Very good, very insightful caller. I got to tell you that we've been, at least I've been looking at this a lot and trying to figure out. Well, not trying to figure out anything, just trying to absorb what I'm seeing and what kind of get a basic understanding in this realm, and it's very uncomfortable too. What you're talking about, describing, and Joe's even a lot probably more advanced in his research than I am, but. Boy, it's just very, very disconcerting to know that this has been in the works for so long.
Yeah, so my feelings with all this symbolism they're putting out there is almost like signaling that they're going to begin extremely pushing this civil unrest, heading into that date. And you have, there's so many things going on tied into that date. You have the Pope, you have Obama going to Israel. It's just like everything is tied in around this date for some reason. It's like that date keeps on coming out, March 20th, March 22nd. It's something they're stirring up something for that date. And just one more thing that I don't know if you guys have seen this, but Albert Pike, there was a letter that he wrote to Giuseppe Mazzini.
The Three World Wars?
The Three World Wars. And if you read that letter, there was a lot of controversy about it. They said that it was a fake. But the thing about the letter, it was written in 1857, and it was made public in 1910, and it's before the wars. And if you read them, and you come down to World War III, it's exactly, if you look at the world right now, if you look what they're doing, it follows that blueprint almost to the T to what they're doing and what they're trying to stir up in the world right now. They talk about the Islamic, setting them against the Christians and starting that off and turning everything upside down to the point where people get totally disenchanted with religion, and then they're going to reveal the true aspects of the Illuminati and the Luciferian, and put that out there for the world to see, which, I'm sure there's a lot of argument for what that could be, but, whether you want to believe in, the alien disclosure, or you can be gods with the mark of the beast, and what the L.A. Marzulli was talking about. I think that kind of ties into that whole disclosure on the true Lucifer worship and what that ties into. You can be God. But it's just funny when you read that letter that he wrote. It falls exactly to what you see they're stirring up in the world right now.
That's right.
Very much so. Oh, my friend, God bless you, man.
Yeah, we appreciate your call.
You guys too.
We're going to let you go. You have a tremendous weekend.
Yeah.
It was
very,
excellent
very
talking to you.
Insightful. We'll do. And you stay safe where you're at. Thanks for your research, by the way.
Yeah, give us a call back.
No problem. God bless.
All right. What a great caller, and what a great series of calls we had. In the chat room, I just want to address something. And Pastor Paul Begley has done a lot on this. The 323 being the implementation of the RFID chip. Now, I did not that I disagree with Pastor Begley, but I do not see this being the date of the implementation as we think it is. Like that everything's going to stop. They're just going to start setting up checkpoints and marking people. But their plan is always through incrementalism. It could be the start of the program through, VA hospitals or third world countries. It could be something that is not too noticeable off the bat. So I'm not saying dismiss it at all, because Pastor Begley has been very accurate, especially in his book that he wrote about on fiction.
Hosea Prophecies.
Well, Hosea Prophecies and the Mark of the Beast.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
And I sent him a few messages, and I don't know if he got them or not because I didn't get a response. He must be pretty busy about getting him on the show, so I'll have to probably call his house this weekend and see if I can get a hold of him.
He was. I was amazed at some of the things that he wrote in the RFID book. I'm sorry,
Mark of the Beast.
Mark of the Beast. Right.
Yeah, he predicted Morsi would be the leader of Egypt. He said the Pope would resign, as well as at least 4 other.
There was like a half a dozen things that he nailed.
But the Obamacare legislation, I've studied this at great lengths, and I couldn't tie it to the date of the 23rd. But what I could tie it to was real about the implementation of the RFID chip being mandatory for the Obamacare through Class 2 implantable medical devices. And you can find law through the FDA. It's a 1997 FDA law, or 2004. Just search RFID PDF or Class 2 implantable devices. And I have the PDF. We might even have it at our resource library.
We do. And I got to tell you something. I owe you a public apology because I fought you so hard about the definitions of Class 2, Class 3 implantable devices and the various devices, whether it's a titanium knee type thing or
a pacemaker or
right. And in the research, when you dig through this, there is this reference to a transmitter type device. Now, whether or not this has anything to do with anything, I'm sure at the very least it has to do with setting the foundation for the forehead and the hand.
And let me go back to the hospital visit my wife just had. They had a regular paper bracelet they put on her. When you go to the hospital, you get a bracelet.
Yeah.
They used to have your name printed on it and your number. Well, now there's a barcode, and the nurses come in the room and scan it every time to make sure that that's the right person. And wow. So, like I said, incrementalism. Now, this wasn't a permanent thing. They took it off when she left. It wasn't injected into her to where.
But it gets you
right.
It gets you
right.
Well, hey, I have a barcode on my wrist. It's okay. I mean, wow.
And yes, somebody asked in the chat room, will we know and have a choice to refuse a chip? Yes, we will. From everything I understand from the Bible, we definitely have a choice because
God will not allow us to be deceived.
Well, no, He will. He will add to the delusion if we are deceived, but we have to have the discernment, because what I just read from Thessalonians, and let me get that again. If we believe a lie instead of seeking the truth, we will, or God will allow us to be deceived even greater, to a greater extent.
Okay, but but going back to the foundation of that, in other words, taking the mark is going to be you're going to have to essentially renounce Christianity or renounce Jesus Christ. It's not going to be.
I don't think we understand
decision
because I don't think it's made its way on. I don't think we understand how the beast and the system of the beast and the Antichrist really work, because I don't think we have. I mean, we've seen the Antichrist spirit, but we have not seen the Antichrist for the time of tribulation. We do not know what it entails, and we do not know what the actual mark is. But yes, you're not going to be able to buy or sell if you refuse this mark. So obviously, you're going to know.
Okay, and that goes back to what I was saying earlier. There's going to be a time when, after the dollar crashes, when there's going to be chaos and all kinds of stuff, and things are getting reformatted. And then when they bring in the new system, part of this is going to be the way it's going to be sold to the people is blaming capitalism for the fall and crash of the dollar and the global economy. So they're going to say, well, part of this is because, and if you think about this, part of this is because the tax. Holy cow! The program's almost over. But the problem is the tax system was so unstructured. We weren't getting. It was so unfair that we've got to keep commerce inside this one global economy. So you're not going to be able to buy or sell. That's going to be the pretext under which this is brought in. Is my understanding. Sorry for that, Joe.
No problem.
It's at the end of the program here.
Yeah, I'm surprised that was the end of the program.
I wasn't even looking at the show clock here, but I just want to say thank you, folks, for everything. It was a tremendous week of programs.
Yes, and thank you for putting up with my absence and my tardiness with emails and messages. Hopefully I'll get caught up this weekend. We'll have some guests going next weekend. As we said, Steve Quill will be joining us. We're going to try and get Pastor Bagley. Yeah. And I got a couple other people, audience, listener suggestions that were sent to me or people got to me that I've written down, that I have a list of people to contact, and I will make sure I do that this weekend. I want to thank each and every one of you for supporting us, for listening to us, for praying for us, for being with us, being a part of our family. And you guys really are a part of our family.
Yeah, absolutely.
As I said earlier, this is my outlet. This is my church for the day, coming here. And especially the people in the chat room. I know most of the listeners who listen aren't involved in the chat room, but it is a family there. And I love each and every one of you, whether you're in the chat room or out of the chat room. But if you have a chance, it's a ministry, really, or a fellowship in there. And get in there if you get a chance.
Hit your knees tonight. Thank God for what you have. Repent. God bless you. Thank you, Joe. Talk to you next week.
Have a great weekend, everybody. Take care.